A long-forgotten mountain deity drifts through the silent currents of time, her past a blur of divine duty. For centuries, a loyal companion followed in her footsteps across the frozen peaks of her mountain home. But when she defied the heavens to save the mortal realm from a great flood, she was cast down and abandoned by all. Ready to trade her divinity for freedom, she chooses a new life where she can roam the world without the burden of a crown. 19 years pass, and the former goddess is reborn as Wan King, a mermaid scavenging for treasure among the skeletons of sunken ships. Despite her aquatic form, she's absolutely terrified of the ocean floor, fleeing from a tiny octopus in a panic. She can almost hear her old friend teasing her for being a fish with a waterlogged brain. Wan King just laughs it off, deciding that having a little water in her head is perfectly normal for someone like her. While searching for coins, she suddenly notices something strange drifting through the sun-drenched water. Her eyes go wide as she realizes she's not alone in the depths. Deep in the abyss, a white-haired girl is sinking fast, her body limp and lifeless. Forgetting her fears, Wan King dives deeper to reach the drowning stranger before it's too late. She stretches her hand out, desperate to catch the girl before she vanishes into the dark. Panicked, Wan King realizes that this human isn't breathing and has no time to lose. She cradles the girl's face, urgently trying to wake her from her unconscious state. Suddenly, a golden pendant around Wan King's neck begins to glow with an intense, ancient power. A violent tremor shakes the ocean floor, sending a massive shockwave through the water. Trapped in the chaos, Wan King gasps for air, her lungs burning as the pressure builds. As her vision fades, she fears she's about to become the first fish in history to actually drown. In a final act of desperation, the white-haired girl pulls her close, performing an emergency transfer of breath to keep her alive. The stranger's eyes snap open, glowing with a piercing, supernatural crimson light. Wan King eventually wakes up on the sandy shore, coughing and gasping for air. She looks up to find the mysterious woman staring down at her with an unreadable expression. Shocked, Wan King realizes she's been wrapped in the woman's dry robe to keep her warm. It dawns on her that this beautiful stranger was the one who pulled her from the depths. Wan King is immediately touched, thinking she's met a kind soul with a heart as beautiful as her face. She flashes a bright, grateful smile, expecting a friendly conversation to follow. But the mood shifts instantly as the woman suddenly seizes her wrists in a firm grip. The stranger reaches out to inspect the glowing golden coin hanging from Wan King's neck. With a cold glare, the woman demands to know what kind of demon would be in possession of such a holy relic. Wan King is blindsided by the accusation that her hard-earned coins are actually demonic ghost money. The stranger seizes Wan King by the chin, her gaze piercing through any potential lies. Overwhelmed by the intense pressure, the mermaid can't help but break down into pathetic whimpers. She releases a deafening wail, desperate to prove she isn't some malicious monster. The sound of her crying is so high-pitched that even the local sea life has to cover their ears in distress. The white-haired interrogator stands frozen, completely caught off guard by the sheer volume of the girl's tears. Wan King begs for mercy, explaining her innocent dream of saving up to visit the human world. Succumbing to a growing headache, the stranger listens as Wan King explains her origins as a 19-year-old mermaid. Hearing the name Wan King triggers a flicker of recognition in the stranger's crimson eyes. A fragmented memory of a noble woman from the past flashes through the stranger's mind. She clutches her head in agony as a phantom voice whispers a name she should have forgotten. Wan King notices the woman trembling and cautiously approaches to offer assistance. The stranger's hand shakes violently as she commands the mermaid to stay back. Despite her failing strength, she attempts to stand her ground and finish the interrogation. Her vision blurs and her focus slips, yet she still mutters a final warning against escaping. The stranger's body finally gives out, and she collapses directly into the mermaid's arms. Wan King is left bewildered, wondering how a person could be so threatening while on the verge of fainting. The mysterious pursuer falls into a deep, forced slumber right there on the shore. Within the stranger's subconscious, a memory resurfaces of a floating relic crackling with dangerous energy. A regal figure from her past warns her that touching the cursed object is a grave mistake. The coin pulses with a dark, electric aura, threatening to corrupt anyone with a weak will. The younger version of the stranger maintains a professional demeanor, insisting she is immune to such temptations. Her mentor leans in close to inspect her for any signs of spiritual corruption. The young student remains silent, focused on maintaining her internal composure during the examination. She touches her cheek, feeling the residual heat from the relic's intense spiritual pressure. The mentor moves in to perform a close-range energy stabilization technique to counteract the coin's influence. Their hands meet as the mentor provides the necessary support to keep her student grounded. With a gentle touch, the mentor reassures her that the spiritual burden is not her fault. The memory shatters as the stranger's eyes snap open, returning her to the present reality. She finds Wan King leaning directly over her, monitoring her breathing with genuine concern. The mermaid prepares to provide further assistance, completely unaware of the spiritual turmoil she just triggered. Wan King looks down at the unconscious stranger on the shore, debating whether she should attempt a risky resuscitation to save her life. She leans in close, issuing a desperate ultimatum to the sleeping beauty to wake up before she takes drastic measures. The little mermaid prepares herself mentally, determined to do whatever it takes to revive her guest. Panic sets in as she checks for signs of life and realizes the stranger isn't breathing at all. Realizing the situation is dire, Wan King recalls her sister's lessons on human first aid and prepares for the worst. Just as she moves to begin the rescue, the stranger's eyes snap open with a sudden, sharp jolt of consciousness. Wan King freezes in total shock, her breath hitching as she finds herself inches away from the now-awake woman. The stranger stares back with intensity, her mind racing as she realizes this girl is not the person from her cursed memories. Still dazed and suffering from a massive headache, the white-haired woman sits up, while Wan King watches with a perplexed expression. Wan King tries to explain away her damp appearance, claiming she just went for a quick dip to keep her scales from drying out. The stranger narrows her gaze, frustrated by the feeling that she is somehow being outmaneuvered by this mysterious mermaid. Moving with sudden, cold intensity, she grabs Wan King's arm and demands the truth about the origin of the cursed coin. Trembling under the pressure, Wan King suggests they talk it out and mentions finding the relic near a sunken vessel. Without another word, the stranger orders the mermaid to stop stalling and lead the way to the site of the wreck. The pair dives deep into the ocean, arriving at the skeletal remains of a massive, ancient shipwreck. The stranger conjures a powerful glowing orb, using her magic to create a breathable space and protect them from the crushing depths. Wan King is struck by a sudden epiphany, realizing that this powerful woman could be her ticket to a better life on land. She descends into a wild daydream, imagining the stranger using celestial magic to help her travel freely between heaven and earth. The stranger catches her whispering and asks what she's muttering about, instantly snapping her back to reality. Caught off guard, Wan King makes up a flimsy excuse about being afraid of the deep water, despite being a literal fish. She immediately regrets the blunder, certain that she has completely ruined her reputation in front of the powerful deity. Desperate to recover her dignity, Wan King strikes a heroic pose and vows to brave any danger to guide her companion. The stranger simply turns away, ignoring the dramatic display and continuing her trek through the underwater ruins. She glides through the water with an ethereal grace, leaving the flustered mermaid behind in the cold current. Feeling defeated, Wan King vents her frustrations to a nearby oyster, while lamenting her failed attempt at acting cool. The stranger pauses and looks back over her shoulder, asking if Wan King plans on following or staying behind. Standing amidst the bubbles and shadows, the white-haired woman waits patiently for her guide to finally catch up. Wan King's eyes sparkle with joy as she realizes the beauty actually stopped to wait for her after all. The two continue their journey, forming an unlikely and somewhat chaotic alliance beneath the waves. A chilling mystery lingers as the stranger's eyes reveal a strange shift in color, hinting at a hidden power. Despite the looming danger, Wan King remains blissfully optimistic about her new companion as they head deeper into the abyss. Wan King presents a glowing orb of light while her oyster companion trembles in fear at the mysterious surroundings. The little oyster warns that all the local fish have fled since this human appeared, wondering why Wan King isn't more concerned. Wan King simply smiles, explaining that this powerful beauty previously saved her life and deserves her trust. Meanwhile, the stranger remains cautious, observing Wan King's movements while acknowledging she hasn't yet fully recovered her own strength. The white-haired mage reveals she was originally drawn here by a specific item, only to be ensnared by a sudden surge of demonic energy. Wan King feels a surge of joy, sensing that the stranger is finally beginning to open up and trust her. She asks if the target of the search is the infamous Ghost Gate coins. The stranger looks away, confessing that she doesn't actually know the true nature of the object she seeks. A blurry memory of a rainy night flashes through her mind, a reminder that much of her past remains shrouded in mystery. She senses a hidden power actively working to conceal the truth from her in these depths. Despite her immense skill, the source of this interference remains frustratingly out of reach. Wan King tries to cheer her up, noting that her current abilities are already far beyond anything a normal sea dweller could achieve. The mention of the sea triggers a sudden realization in the mage's mind, connecting the properties of air and water. She theorizes that the ocean itself acts as a natural domain, a massive barrier shielding whatever is hidden within. To bypass this, she decides to establish her own magical domain to strip away the ocean's concealment. She firmly instructs Wan King to step back, catching the mermaid off guard with her sudden intensity. Channeled energy erupts around her as she begins to cast a high-level spell. Her eyes snap open, revealing a striking heterochromia that glows with ancient power. Wan King stares in disbelief, mesmerized by the sudden and dramatic transformation of her companion. This spiritual energy is a byproduct of her extraordinary birth, granting her vision that transcends the mortal realm. With eyes that can see the aura of gods and ghosts alike, she pierces through the murky darkness. The hidden reality of the shipwreck is finally revealed, stripping away the shadows that once masked it. As her gaze shifts upward, her eyes turn a brilliant, piercing white. Wan King follows her gaze, sensing a massive shift in the surrounding currents. A surge of dragon's breath manifests, a legendary power unique to the royal family of the Dragon Palace. The energy streaks toward the rotting hull of the sunken ship, exposing the cursed aura clinging to the wood. Suddenly, a swarm of red-eyed entities begins to crawl out of the wreckage, terrifying Wan King. The stranger stands her ground, ready to defend the mermaid against whatever dark force they've just disturbed. The maid shouts a frantic warning as the situation turns dire. Wan King feels a sudden, firm grip pulling her toward safety. Locked in a protective hold, the two exchange a tense, meaningful look. Wan King watches in horror as the local wildlife succumbs to demonic corruption. Fear flickers in the mermaid's eyes as she realizes the scale of the impending blast. Clinging to her protector, Wan King witnesses the golden aura expand aggressively. The mage maintains a cold, analytical gaze while explaining the necessity of their survival. Cursed entities swarm the golden barrier, desperate to breach their defenses. Her heterochromatic eye narrows, sensing a hidden mastermind behind the sudden ambush. The mage questions if Wan King still wishes to show mercy to these monsters. A violent explosion of blue energy shatters the domain with overwhelming force. Shock washes over the mage's face as her internal power spirals out of control. Wan King lunges forward to push the mage clear of a collapsing structure. A shadowy impact sends them both plummeting into the dark depths. They hit the shipwreck's deck hard, the mermaid's tail shimmering in the gloom. The injured mage struggles to focus, checking on her companion's safety. Blood stains the scene as Wan King hovers over her fallen protector in panic. With a final, weary expression, the mage collapses against the wooden floor. Wan King wakes up with a sharp jolt, gasping as she remembers the chaos of the explosion. She looks over to see the mage watching her with a calm, piercing gaze. Wan King blinks in surprise, her eyes wide as she realizes the beauty has finally regained consciousness. The mage sits up gracefully, her presence still commanding despite her disheveled attire. A flustered Wan King panics when she realizes she had to use the mage's own clothes to bandage her wounds. Wan King sighs in relief, her face glowing with genuine gratitude that her companion is safe. The two sit together on the sea floor, discussing the medicinal pills used to stabilize the mage's condition. Wan King leans in close, showering the mage with sincere praise for her incredible magical and medical skills. The mage listens in silence, her expression softening as she reflects on the mermaid's selfless nature. Wan King offers a bright, radiant smile that warms the cold depths of the ocean. The mage's eyes narrow slightly, her mind racing with questions about the mermaid's true motives. She remains lost in thought, her gaze lingering on her companion's earnest face. Wan King stares back, her eyes sparkling with admiration as she gets lost in the mage's elegance. The mage reaches out, placing a gentle hand on Wan King's head to check for a temperature. She asks if merfolk are susceptible to fevers, noting the sudden flush on the girl's face. Wan King flails her arms in acute panic, insisting she's just feeling a little bit warm from the excitement. Suddenly, Wan King's attention is caught by something glowing in the distance. A mysterious, luminous stone stele stands tall amidst the wreckage of the ship. They approach the monolith together, wondering if this object is what kept the demon fish at bay. The mage reaches out to touch the intricate flower carving, identifying it as a land-dwelling species. Wan King leans in to examine the glowing slab, fascinated by its strange, ethereal surface. She turns back to the mage, seeking more information about this rare and beautiful artifact. Wan King's expression shifts to concern as she notices the mage has stopped responding. The mage stands in a daze, her eyes fixed on the glowing flower as if caught in a trance. Blood begins to ooze from a fresh cut on her hand, staining the surface of the stone. The mage's eyes widen in a sudden jolt of realization as the environment begins to shift. The entire area begins to rumble and rustle with a strange spiritual energy. A flashback reveals a woman with long, flowing hair sitting at a desk, contemplating a difficult task. She looks down with a somber expression, her mind weighed down by heavy responsibilities. She examines a mystical compass, warning of the dangers of malevolent thoughts and demonic summoning. The woman turns around with a gentle smile to greet a young visitor. A young version of the mage, little Baizhu, stands there holding a stack of books with a worried look. The woman places a comforting hand on the books, trying to soothe the girl's fears. She reaches out to tenderly cup Baizhu's cheek, reassuring her that the higher authorities will handle the situation. She pulls the young girl into a protective embrace, warning her to keep the true nature of her eyes a secret. Baizhu looks down, her small hands clutching a gift she brought back from her travels. She holds up a beautiful, glowing spirit flower that shimmers with ethereal light. The flower is revealed to be a powerful essence capable of foreseeing future disasters. Back in the present, tears well up in the mage's eyes as the weight of the past crashes down on her. Baizhu's mind flashes back to her mentor's stern warning that a spirit's essence is far too precious to be given away so carelessly. She recalls a haunting admission of guilt, realizing she was the one who first broke heavenly laws by consorting with demons in the distant past. The weight of these recovered memories settles on her as she wonders if she is truly the immortal being the legend spoke of. Visions of the flame in water and the cold iron chains that once bound her resurface as she connects her current journey to the ancient stone. She sees a memory of a snowy trek where a loyal companion promised to follow her to the very ends of the earth. Back in the present, Wan King panics at the sight of the mage's tears, reaching out in a desperate attempt to comfort her. Baizhu gasps for air, overwhelmed by the revelation that she was the one who originally erected this stele to bury her unspoken feelings. Seeing the mage in such visible distress, Wan King calls out to her with eyes full of genuine, heartfelt concern. Suddenly, a massive tentacle lashes out from the shadows, snagging Baiju's arm in a firm, restrictive grip. Without a second thought, Baiju moves into a protective stance to shield the mermaid from the sudden intruder. Wan King looks up in total shock as she realizes her overprotective friends have finally tracked her down. The octopus, Anew, accidentally entangles both of them in a massive, squelching knot of limbs during the struggle. A small spirit companion watches in disbelief as the clumsy octopus admits he has accidentally tied his own tentacles into a dead knot, while Wan King happily clings to her new friend. The octopus and the spirit child remain deeply suspicious of the human mage. Fed up with the mermaid's total lack of caution, the little spirit child pinches Wan King's ear to try and talk some sense into her. Crabs brandish their spears as the spirit child orders the scoundrel to be taken away for further questioning. The entire group is bundled together for transport, moving through the dark waters toward the mermaid kingdom. They dive deeper into the blue, passing through massive schools of fish as they approach an illuminated underwater citadel. Wan King beams with a bright smile, insisting to her family that the beauty really didn't do anything wrong. Even as they arrive at the palace gates, the octopus is still struggling to untie his tangled tentacles from the two girls. The mermaid's kin watch the scene with narrow eyes, convinced that the human has somehow brainwashed their sister. The little spirit child spirals into a dramatic fantasy, imagining the human is plotting to cook and eat Wan King. The chaotic bickering is silenced instantly when the eldest sister, Yuran, demands order with a furious, authoritative shout. Baiju and Wan King look up in silence, feeling the immense pressure of the elder mermaid's icy gaze. Remaining perfectly calm, the mage prepares to address the royalty, keeping her focus on the diplomatic task at hand. With a sudden whoop, the octopus finally manages to unravel his limbs, releasing the pair from the tangled mess. Baiju worries that her presence has unintentionally dragged the innocent Wan King into a dangerous web of demonic energy. The skeptical spirit child notes that their elite patrols have never detected even a trace of the demonic fish Baiju describes. Baiju reflects on the earth deity's warning about the two relics and their deep connection to her fractured past. She realizes with a heavy heart that her forgotten actions of nurturing demons have placed her beyond the redemption of heavenly law. Suddenly, the protective light surrounding her begins to waver and flicker out. Sensing the change, Wan King calls out alarm as the environment shifts. The last of the spiritual protection is snuffed out, leaving Baiju vulnerable to the crushing depths. Deprived of her spirit technique, Baiju struggles as her consciousness begins to slip away underwater. A small, life-saving elixir bottle floats out from her robes as she loses her grip. Wan King acts instantly, catching the medicine and preparing to stabilize her companion's condition. Focusing purely on the medical emergency, Wan King carefully administers the elixir to revive the fading immortal. As Baiju regains her strength, Wan King expresses her immense relief while the others observe the close call. Yuran remains stoic, her expression hidden as she processes the unexpected turn of events. The eldest sister finally breaks her silence, demanding to know what Baiju intends to do now. While the others stand by with suspicion, Yuran listens intently to the traveler's response. With a look of absolute resolve, Baiju asks the mermaid leader to place her trust in their shared goals. Yuran hands over a jade artifact cast with a restrictive spell, serving as both a shield and a warning. Baiju studies the jade, puzzled by the familiar spiritual energy radiating from the surface world relic. Wan King explains that the stone was a gift from a human, a token of a past connection that has earned them this small mercy. Baiju's hand drifts to her face as she reflects on the urgent way the medicine was delivered. Noticing the gaze, Wan King becomes frantic, trying to justify her quick thinking during the crisis. Baiju simply watches her with a calm, knowing expression that cuts through the mermaid's rambling. The tension breaks into a lighthearted moment as Baiju accepts the explanation without further question. Setting aside the awkwardness, the two begin an underwater survey to search for clues regarding the demonic energy. To move faster through the currents, Wan King reaches out to hold onto Baiju's sleeve. They glide through the deep blue together, Wan King guiding her guest with practiced ease. Baiju is mesmerized by the ethereal glow of the jellyfish floating like stars in the abyss. She reaches out toward the light, but Wan King quickly warns her that some of these beauties carry deadly toxins. A sudden, low rumble vibrates through the water, catching both of them off guard. Below them, the sea begins to pulse with the intense heat of awakening magma vents. They witness the spectacular eruption of an underwater vent, a rare event that provides life-giving nutrients to the ocean. Wan King's eyes sparkle with joy, seeing the gathering of jellyfish as a sign of incredible luck. Her tail cuts through the shimmering water as she celebrates the rare and beautiful sight. As the sun begins to set on the horizon, the crashing waves mark the end of their long day of discovery. Baiju confirms her identity, though her distant gaze suggests her memories are still a fractured mosaic. Wan King repeats the name, committing every syllable to memory as she observes the mysterious immortal. Seeking a moment of connection, Baiju gently guides Wan King's hand to show her the precise strokes of her name. The atmosphere softens as they exchange nicknames, a small step toward building trust in these dangerous depths. To prepare for the journey ahead, Baiju takes Wan King's hand to evaluate if her cultivation is strong enough to sustain a human form on land. She notices that while Wan King's power is modest, her innate sensitivity to the surrounding spiritual currents is remarkably sharp. Despite the aura of power she radiates, Baiju solemnly admits that she is no divine being. She reflects on her origin, a blank slate drifting through the tides, until she was pulled from the brink by humble fishermen. To repay her debt, she spent years as a village doctor, using her medical talents to heal those who had granted her a second chance. Wan King listens with wide-eyed wonder, realizing that Baiju's fate has been intertwined with the Eastern Sea from the very beginning. Baiju looks away, questioning if the weight of her lost past is a burden she truly wishes to carry again. Wan King tries to lighten the mood, recalling her own trivial fears like being chased by deep-sea predators. However, she can't shake a sudden, tightening sensation in her chest at the sight of Baiju's hidden sorrow. Stepping closer, the mermaid makes a firm vow to remain by Baiju's side until every lost memory is reclaimed. The intensity of the moment is palpable as they stand together, the spiritual bridge between an immortal and the sea growing stronger. The peace is shattered when Baishu senses a shift in the current, immediately pulling Wan King behind her for safety. Her eyes sharpen with a predatory focus, sensing that the hidden threat has finally decided to reveal itself. Below them, the water teems with a massive school of fish, their forms twisted and corrupted by pure demonic energy. Baishu stands firm on the jagged rocks, suspecting her own spiritual signature acted as a lure for this corruption. The demonized creatures hiss in unison, their eerie voices calling out to a master hidden within the gloom. While Wan King trembles at the sight of the legendary horror, Baiju feels a chilling sense of familiarity from the dark aura. A towering, shadowy figure looms behind the mermaid, its presence cold enough to freeze the very air. Without hesitation, Baishu shifts her weight, effectively blocking the path of the encroaching darkness. She reveals that this confrontation was no accident. She had planted a spiritual trap at the stone still to draw the culprit out. Wan King is momentarily awestruck by Baiju's tactical brilliance, even as the danger escalates. Thinking quickly, Wan King recalls the powerful artifact Yu Ran gave her for their protection. She realizes the restrictive spell within the jade might be their only technical shield against such an overwhelming force. The demon sneers from the shadows, claiming Baiju's unique energy is the final piece needed to complete the stone's power. Wan King watches the exchange closely, wondering if this monster holds the key to the person Baishu is searching for. The entity strikes with a sudden burst of malice, declaring that neither of them will leave this place alive. Dark tendrils of energy erupt from the ground, forcing Baishu to grab Wan King and leap back from the initial blast. Just as the darkness closes in, the protective jade flares to life, creating a brilliant barrier of divine light. A violent explosion of spiritual power rocks the cavern as the jade's enchantment clashes with the demonic shadow. The blinding light scores the area, forcing the demonic presence to retreat back into the depths with a thunderous splash. As the bubbles settle, Baishu is left reeling from the shock, her heart racing from a sensation she hasn't felt in centuries. Baishu feels the spiritual energy of the jade, and the pool surging through her very veins like ancient memories. She realizes these two jade fragments were carved from the same stone, designed to trigger a teleportation spell upon contact with demonic energy. Lost in a trance, Baishu hears the faint, desperate echoes of Wan King's voice pleading for her to wake up. Her eyes snap open as she suddenly regains her senses beneath the surface of the water. Wan King pulls her close, relieved to see her friend conscious and offering to guide her back to the shore. Instead of following, Baishu dives back into the depths, leaving the mermaid completely baffled. A panicked Wan King wonders if the trauma of the battle has caused Baishu to lose her mind. Reaching into the silt, Baishu successfully retrieves the second half of the jade pendant. She examines the matching pieces, confirming that they form a powerful protective barrier when united. Wan King's eyes widen with worry as she describes how terrifyingly pained Baishu looked just moments ago. Baishu ignores the mermaid's constant chattering while they sit together in the shallow water. Baishu ponders the mysterious connection between her unique eyes and the dark energy they just faced. Wan King scans the horizon, shocked to realize they have been transported to an entirely different land. Overjoyed by her situation, the mermaid dreams of all the plays and festivals she can finally see on the mainland. Baishu explains that the jade acted as a beacon, pulling them toward this hidden hot spring. She wonders why Wan King's sister had such an artifact, and if she has secret ties to the people living here. Baishu looks at the glowing symbols on the stone stele, suspecting it holds the key to her missing past. She decides to keep a fragment of the stone to eventually track down its origin. A sudden movement in the water catches Baiju's eye, making her turn her head in curiosity. Wan King looks up innocently, commenting on how different the tasteless freshwater feels compared to the salty sea. Baiju maintains a calm, professional silence as she observes the mermaid's reaction to the spring. She begins to untie her outer layers to better enjoy the restorative properties of the water. Baiju prepares for a proper soak, her expression remaining stoic and focused. Wan King reacts with comedic shock at how quickly Baiju agreed to bathe together. The mermaid hides her face, feeling an unexpected wave of embarrassment despite the innocent setting. Looking closer, Wan King notices an old, faded scar running across Baiju's back. Baiju looks back over her shoulder, coolly stating that the injury is from a time she no longer cares to remember. Sensing the heavy mood, Wan King resolves to find a fun topic to make Baizhu smile again. She leans in to ask if land dwellers always prefer such small, clear pools for their baths. Wan King excitedly offers to perform underwater acrobatics, if they can find a deeper pool later. Baizhu finds herself amused by the mermaid's enthusiasm for the strange customs of the land. She gently reminds Wan King that their visit is only temporary, and they must plan their return. Wan King worries that their sudden disappearance might lead her family to think they have run away together. Baizhu and Wan King discuss their next move while soaking in the restorative waters of the hot spring. A flickering candle marks the beginning of a vivid, shared dream sequence centered on a mysterious figure. In the vision, the silver-haired woman expresses deep concern over the depletion of spiritual energy. The companion suggests a medicinal remedy to help manage the physical toll of their duties. A wave of discomfort washes over the figure as the dream intensifies. The two lean toward each other, focused entirely on the urgent need for a spiritual recovery session. A red garment falls aside as they maintain a close proximity to facilitate the healing ritual. The silver-haired woman looks on with a focused gaze, wondering if this memory is more than just a dream. A dark pulse of energy radiates from the jade fragment, echoing with a rhythmic heartbeat. Wan King appears deeply affected by the vision, her expression one of complete bewilderment. She drifts further into the trance, her senses overwhelmed by the spiritual residue. The vision abruptly ends as Wan King leans in toward Baizhu in the real world. Baizhu quickly intervenes, pinching the girl's cheeks to wake her from the confusing daydream. Startled and embarrassed, Wan King splashes back and tries to explain the strange sensation she just felt. She describes how the glow of the jade seemed to alter her perception of her own physical form. Baizhu holds the glowing artifact aloft, acknowledging the overwhelming spiritual energy it emits. Baizhu's gaze narrows as she realizes the energy from the jade is also affecting her own mind. She manifests a sphere of power, questioning the true identity of the person she saw in her memories. A sudden, sharp metallic jingle catches Baizhu's attention, putting her on high alert. An unknown visitor stands on the bank, prompting an immediate defensive reaction from the pair in the water. Baizhu and Wan King watch the stranger warily, unsure of the newcomer's intentions. The mysterious figure activates a complex golden compass, claiming to have aided Baizhu in the distant past. The mysterious ally sets down a steaming pot of tea, inviting Baizhu to settle in for a long overdue conversation. She wastes no time urging Baizhu to set aside her distrust, so they can focus on the urgent business at hand. Baizhu remains cautious, her eyes narrowing as she weighs whether this woman's certainty stems from truth or a clever lie. As the stranger speaks of the lost jade ornaments, Baizhu listens in silence, searching her own fractured memories for a spark of recognition. The two sit across from one another in the quiet pavilion, surrounded only by the soft chirping of the local wildlife. Nearby, a pair of small birds chatter away, seemingly oblivious to the weight of the secrets being shared. Baizhu admits that while her mind is blank, the sight of the mountain steel stirred a powerful, undeniable connection deep within her soul. The stranger offers a knowing smile, her golden compass gleaming as she clarifies the true origin of Baizhu's spiritual power. Hidden in the tall grass, Wan King listens with wide eyes, her heart racing as she learns of the fated spirit flower. Desperate for more information, the little mermaid consults the birds, hoping their keen ears caught what she missed. The birds chirp back a confusing riddle about Baizhu's name and its connection to the ancient herbs of the mountains. Frustration bubbles up inside Wan King as she realizes the spiritual barrier has cut off her ability to eavesdrop further. With a sudden splash, she decides to take a risk and approach the house directly to get the answers she needs. Back at the table, Baizhu's expression hardens as the conversation turns to the treachery of the former mountain goddess. A vision of the past flickers to life, showing the ethereal figure who was supposedly responsible for summoning demons. Fragments of a dark memory resurface, depicting a moment when Baizhu was nearly consumed by a terrifying surge of demonic energy. Baizhu stares back at her guest, processing the shocking claim that she was the one investigating forbidden paths. The stranger's gaze is piercing, her eyes reflecting the gravity of the technical calculations she once performed for Baizhu. She explains that the massive stone monument was actually the catalyst for a ritual to transform Baizhu into a heavenly puppet. The stranger details the horrific cost of this transformation, explaining that a puppet body can survive any injury but lacks a true soul. A shimmering image of Baizhu's refined spiritual form appears, illustrating her transition into a being that exists outside the three worlds. The cold truth finally drops. Because her current body is so severely damaged, Baizhu only has one single year left to live. Wan King gasps in absolute horror from her hiding spot, the weight of the one-year deadline crashing down on her. Seeing Baizhu's calm demeanor, the stranger questions why she isn't more terrified of her own impending demise. Baizhu reaches for her chest, feeling the ache of memories that are far more painful than the thought of disappearing. She looks forward with a somber resolve, her heart full of longings that she cannot yet let go of. The stranger's attention suddenly shifts, pointing out the worried girl who has been clumsily lurking outside the entire time. Caught in the act, Wan King struggles to climb the steep bamboo stairs, her small frame no match for the height of the deck. Her heart skips a beat as she realizes she has been spotted, her eyes reflecting her panic and concern. Baizhu gently pulls the mermaid into a supportive embrace, listening as Wan King tearfully admits she only came because she was worried. Chu Yan formally introduces herself as a mystic, clarifying her non-predatory nature to the wary group. Baizhu pulls the trembling mermaid close. Noticing the profound worry etched into her features, Chu Yan points out that while Baizhu is usually on guard, she has completely lowered her defenses for the little mermaid. Baizhu gazes down with soft, empathetic eyes, her focus shifting toward the mermaid's unique physical traits. Noticing the mermaid's struggle, Baizhu gently supports her, while the girl tries to brush off the discomfort of her shimmering tail. Wan King determinedly explains that she needs to practice going ashore to help investigate the source of the demonic energy. The mystic suddenly appears right beside them, startling Wan King with her silent, ghost-like movements. Chu Yan explains the technicalities of cultivation, noting that even aquatic beings can lighten their physical forms through diligent practice. Hope flickers in Wan King's eyes as she imagines a future where they can train together as equals. The weight of the one-year death sentence hits Wan King once more, her expression turning somber at the thought of their limited time. Baizhu maintains a calm, professional composure, assuring the girl that she has her own ways to handle her dwindling lifespan. Chu Yan observes the pair through her mystical lens, noting that their bond is an unprecedented anomaly that defies divination. Desperate to be useful, Wan King looks up at her companion and asks if there is any way she can provide assistance. Chu Yan begins to explain the technical requirements for a mermaid to sustain a human form through a specific energy transfer. Baizhu quickly shuts down the mystic's more complex suggestions, preferring to find a method she can control herself. Wan King pleads for the chance to stay by Baizhu's side, eager to fulfill her role in the mission to find the truth. She highlights her unique ability to communicate with the local wildlife, offering a tactical advantage for their journey. The mermaid reaches out, her hands trembling as she seeks a firm connection with the person she admires most. Overwhelmed by an inexplicable connection, Wan King tries to find the words to express her deep desire to understand Baizhu's world. Seeing the girl's unwavering resolve, Baizhu finally relents and agrees to let her join the journey. Wan King looks up with wide, expectant eyes, ready to learn the technical steps required for her transformation. Chu Yan prepares the group for the ritual, explaining that they will need to use spiritual artifacts as a medium for the energy. The mystic demonstrates how she will open the necessary energy pathways to allow the mermaid to store spiritual power safely. In a moment of quiet focus, the three of them prepare to use external force and spiritual incantations to maintain the shape-shifting. Their hands meet firmly, signaling the start of a technical process to bridge their two different natures. With a nod of professional agreement, Baizhu asks if they are ready to begin the transformation process. Chu Yan channels the benevolent power of water, beginning the intricate ritual to bridge the gap between worlds. She reveals the Twin Heart Jade, a delicate artifact designed to serve as the perfect vessel for channeling spiritual energy. Wan King closes her eyes as a foreign power begins to seep into her soul, mirroring the cold flow of energy within Baizhu. Noticing her hesitation, Baizhu leans in and softly reassures her not to be afraid of the shifting currents. As their spirits intertwine, Wan King catches a glimpse of the profound loneliness hidden behind her companion's stoic gaze. Despite the vast distance between their natures, the mermaid resolves to keep chasing after Baizhu's back. Baizhu tightens her grip, her touch serving as a steady anchor for Wan King as they navigate the depths of the mortal realm. Back at the shore, Chu Yan confirms that the technical requirements for a stable shape-shifting ritual have finally been met. Baizhu provides steady physical support, while the mystic explains that the jade must remain close to maintain the transformation. Chu Yan decides to test the connection by casting a preliminary spell to help adjust Wan King's attire. However, the spell takes a literal turn, manifesting fluffy ears and paws as Wan King becomes a bewildered rabbit. A bristling Wan King trembles in protest as the mystic suggests that a small animal spirit might be more natural for her. With a sudden burst of magic, her form shifts again, this time sprouting the pointed ears of a clever fox. The mermaid continues to struggle with the prank, insisting that a fox spirit is still far from her intended goal. Chu Yan only laughs, playfully threatening to add even more tails to the chaotic transformation. When the form switches to a snake, Wan King loses her balance, forcing Baizhu to catch her before she falls. While the mermaid zips around in her serpentine state, Chu Yan considers trying a deer form next. Seeing her companion's distress, Baizhu pulls Wan King close and tells the mystic to stop the teasing. Now that they are alone, Wan King stares at her tail, wondering if human legs are simply two snake tails joined together. She looks up at Baizhu with a mix of wonder and anxiety, desperate to finally walk on land as an equal. Under the canopy of the forest, the duo sits in silence to focus their spiritual energy for the final attempt. Baizhu's voice echoes through a telepathic link, instructing her that the first step to being human is true belief. Wan King focuses every ounce of her will on her attachments, using her curiosity for the shore to fuel the change. The surrounding water reacts to the surge of power, swirling in a violent vortex as the mermaid's nature begins to rewrite itself. Glowing scales begin to dissolve under the intense pressure of the spiritual channeling. The shimmering tail finally gives way, reshaping itself into the human form she has always dreamed of. The splash of the water marks the arrival of Wan King's greatest wish, her own pair of human legs. She beams with pure joy, marveling at the successful ritual that finally gave her the ability to walk on land. In a burst of excitement, she playfully shows off her new limbs to her stoic companion. She points out with wonder that even the old scars from the ocean reefs have completely vanished from her smooth skin. Baizhu reaches out to steady the overeager mermaid, ensuring her stability after such a massive physical change. Wan King compares her new form to Baizhu's, fascinated by the physical similarities they now share. Baizhu's gaze remains intensely focused on the technical success of the transformation process. Maintaining a professional distance, Baizhu politely averts her eyes to respect the boundaries of their new situation. Unfazed, Wan King continues to celebrate her success as she prepares to take her first real steps. The moment is interrupted by a sharp cough from Chu Yan, who has just returned to check on their progress. Wan King immediately greets the mystic, eager to show off the results of the jade's power. Chu Yan keeps a respectful distance, knowing better than to intrude on the pair's private moment. The transition to walking is harder than it looks, as Wan King immediately loses her balance and tumbles into Baizhu's arms. She laughs it off, thanking her friend while realizing that human life requires a lot more effort than she anticipated. Those specific words trigger a sudden, haunting memory in Baizhu, leaving her momentarily stunned. She grows pensive, troubled by how easily her spiritual energy is reacting to these fragments of the past. Wan King leans in with concern, noticing the sudden change in her companion's usually calm demeanor. Brushing off the moment, Baizhu reaches down to retrieve a fallen accessory from the water. She gently advises the exhausted mermaid to get some rest after such a taxing ordeal. As night falls over the quiet inn, the weight of the day finally settles in. Wan King falls into a deep, peaceful sleep while Baizhu keeps a silent, protective watch from the shadows. Chu Yan approaches with a warm bowl of medicine, noting that the long day of ritual work has surely taken its toll. Baizhu accepts the bowl, drinking the soul-condensing brew to stabilize her own refined form. The two move through the hall, discussing the complex nature of binding souls to artificial vessels. Chu Yan warns that while the medicine helps, it is merely a temporary fix for a much deeper spiritual issue. Baizhu listens carefully, realizing that reclaiming her lost memories is the only path to a permanent solution. Chu Yan shifts the conversation, reminding her of a specific promise that has yet to be fulfilled. Holding a glimmer of spiritual light, Baizhu confirms that she hasn't forgotten her end of the bargain. The energy from the jade pendant begins to manifest, revealing glimpses of a past long forgotten. Baizhu looks back with a sense of unease, wondering how these intense emotions will affect her moving forward. They sit together in the dim light, acknowledging the heavy price paid for their current survival. Chu Yan emphasizes that Baizhu is the only one capable of completing the dangerous task ahead. With a look of quiet resolve, Baizhu accepts her role as the one who defied the natural order to forge her own path. Baizhu's mind fractures as she recalls a hazy vision of herself wounded on the ground next to a cryptic scroll. Chu Yan explains that long ago, a legendary five-colored stone from the goddess Nua fell to the very edge of the three realms. This celestial artifact is prized by masters of puppetry as the ultimate material for soul binding and refining. In the distant past, Baizhu sought out the rare bamboo and stone to uncover the truth and refine her own essence. Chu Yan admits with a focused gaze that she needs that exact material for her own purposes. The two sit together as Chu Yan recalls the pact they made to turn that stone into a life-saving array core. Baizhu had even promised to use herself as a test subject to help refine a perfect, heavenly puppet body. Flashbacks reveal Baizhu's unconscious form being infused with the magical energy of the stone's stalks during a critical moment. Chu Yan sighs, marveling at the strange twists of fate that have brought them back to this point. A silent step emphasizes the weight of the secrets being shared between them. A spectral image of Baizhu's soul lingers, highlighting the instability of her current existence. Baizhu asks if these complex refining methods were inherited from Chu Yan's former master. Chu Yan confirms her master was a genius who taught her everything about alchemy and the ways of the mortal realm. She reflects on the hidden strength of mortals, realizing they should never be underestimated by the heavens. Gripping her cup tightly, Chu Yan's voice darkens as she mentions the heavenly court's role in her master's mysterious murder. A spark of vengeance glimmers in her eyes as she vows to eventually find the one responsible. Baizhu offers a rare moment of cooperation, promising to retrieve the stone again once her memories are restored. Chu Yan shifts the conversation, asking what Baizhu plans to do regarding the girl in the other room. Outside the quiet hut, she warns that involving the dragon tribe has made it impossible to turn back now. Chu Yan notes that Wan King possesses an incredible, natural affinity for absorbing spiritual energy. She reveals a mystical divination tool, explaining that Wan King is an anomaly who exists outside of any known hexagram. The two sit in contemplative silence, realizing the path ahead is completely unpredictable. Despite the danger, Chu Yan offers a small smile, suggesting that this uncertainty might actually be a blessing. Suddenly, a sharp pang of spiritual resonance causes Baizhu to wince in unexpected pain. Her eyes widen in distress as a powerful, shared emotion surges through her soul. Baizhu looks up, feeling a sudden and intense connection to the sleeping girl girl nearby. In the next room, Wan King is lost in the depths of a vivid and haunting dream. A swirling vision manifests, showing two figures locked in a spiritual embrace amidst a sea of stars. The intensity of the memory causes a trickle of blood to escape a pair of trembling lips. Within the dream, a tender hand reaches out to comfort a face filled with sorrow. Baiju's eyes in the vision are clouded with the weight of the world's suffering. The dream shifts into a nightmare of red energy as the figure's eyes glow with a fierce, defiant rage. A brief, glowing memory of a soft smile flickers through the darkness of the unconscious mind. The mysterious woman in the dream questions the true meaning of choosing a difficult human life. The two figures are suddenly enveloped in a brilliant golden aura, transcending the physical world. Flowers bloom as the vision declares that the heart has always belonged to the mortal realm. A final, soft gaze promises to protect this connection, no matter the cost to their divinity. Wan King suddenly bolts upright with a desperate cry, her face drenched in a cold sweat. She gasps for air, her eyes wide with the lingering terror of the realistic nightmare. Her crystalline blue eyes dart around the room as she tries to ground herself back in reality. Baiju quickly moves to her side, checking her forehead to ensure the spiritual fever has broken. Wan King looks up at her protector, her voice trembling as she calls out Baiju's name. Overwhelmed by the shared pain of the dream, the girl lunges forward to seek safety in a tight embrace. Tears stream down Wan King's face as she wonders who the mysterious person in her realistic vision could have been. Wan King leans into Baiju's embrace, trembling as she recounts a dream that felt far too real. She recalls a blurry memory of Baiju being held by a mysterious figure from the distant past. A sudden wave of jealousy washes over the little mermaid as she contemplates who could have been so close to her companion. She huffs in frustration, unable to shake the mental image of someone else stealing Baiju's attention. Wan King continues her story, describing how Baiju's eyes seem to shift into a strange, pale hue during the vision. Outside, the silent night hangs heavy over the building where the trio discusses these spiritual anomalies. She explains the sensation of spiritual energy surging wildly around them, a phenomenon she felt deep within her soul. Chu Yan steps forward, noting that such a vivid perception of spiritual energy is beyond anything she expected. The alchemist explains that this resonance proves the two of them share a bond far deeper than a simple friendship. Wan King pauses, her finger to her lip, as she tries to grasp the true meaning of such a spiritual connection. She wonders if sharing more energy would allow her to understand Baiju's every thought like a worm in her stomach. Overwhelmed by her own racing thoughts, the mermaid begins nervously chewing on her hand until Baiju gently intervenes. Shifting the focus, Wan King asks if their upcoming journey onto land will be free of trouble. Baiju takes her hands, offering a silent, steady presence while listening to her concerns. Chu Yan interrupts the calm, warning that they are about to face a source of genuine terror. Wan King looks around in confusion, completely unaware of the threat lurking just out of sight. Suddenly, a small orange creature is hoisted into the air, sparking immediate chaos. Terrified by the tiny predator, Wan King screams and lunges into Baiju's arms for protection. To the mermaid, the group of stray cats feels like a pack of fierce monsters closing in on her. Baiju tries to calm her down by showing her that the well-behaved creature is nothing to fear. Still shaking, Wan King asks if the land is filled with these supposedly fierce beasts. Chu Yan finds it ironic that a powerful spiritual being is reduced to tears by a common house cat. To help her feel safe, Chu Yan hands over a bundle of cat-repellent herbs for self-defense. The moon shines through the canopy as the group prepares for the rest of their evening. Covered head to toe in the protective grass, Wan King triumphantly declares her victory over the feline invaders. Chu Yan can't help but chuckle at the irony, noting that Wan King's temperament is just as fickle as a cat's. Baiju reaches out to remove a stray leaf, warning her not to wear the grass so carelessly. She explains that in the mortal world, placing grass on one's head carries a very different, unfortunate meaning. The strong scent of the various herbs suddenly catches up to Wan King, causing her to let out a small sneeze. Her eyes water from the irritation, making her look even more vulnerable in the dim light. A flurry of sneezes follows as the mermaid struggles to adjust to the potent medicinal aromas. Chu Yan checks the girl's pulse, realizing her cold spiritual energy needs a warming tonic to stabilize. As they discuss the medicine, Wan King listens intently to how mortals rely on these brews to sustain their lives. The bitter taste is too much for her to handle, and she reflexively spits the medicine right back at the alchemist. With tears in her eyes, Wan King shows her tongue to Baiju, begging her to check if the bitter brew caused any swelling. Wan King looks up with concern, asking her companion to check if her face has swollen from the medicinal reaction. Baiju gently brushes a stray lock of hair aside, promising to provide sweet candy before the next dose of medicine to mask the bitterness. The mere mention of a sugary treat sends Wan King into a state of pure, wide-eyed excitement. She clasps her hands together, envisioning the legendary sweets sold at temple fairs that she has only ever read about in storybooks. Later that night, Wan King lies awake in the dark, her mind racing with doubt over whether their guide Chu Yan is truly reliable. A strange, restless heat begins to rise in her chest, causing her to press a hand against her burning cheek in confusion. Unable to find peace, she sits up and looks over at the person resting calmly beside her in the quiet of the room. She finds herself leaning over her companion, her heart pounding as she navigates the unfamiliarity of sharing such a close space. Drawn in by a sense of curiosity, she inches closer to the sleeping figure, her gaze lingering on Baiju's tranquil expression. Suddenly, a sharp realization cuts through her haze, snapping her back to her senses as she realizes how close she has gotten. She is haunted by the lingering memory of a dream, wondering if her companion harbors feelings for someone else from a distant past. Doubt clouds her vision as she stares down, desperately wishing she knew what Baiju truly thought of her. Just as the internal tension peaks, Baiju's eyes slowly flutter open, catching Wan King in her moment of deep contemplation. Before she can pull away, a cool hand reaches up to touch her forehead, catching the startled mermaid completely off guard. Still half asleep, Baiju checks her for a fever and softly asks why she isn't resting. To soothe her restless mind, Baiju pulls her into a comforting embrace and gently pats her back, guiding her towards sleep. Nestled in the warmth of the protective hold, Wan King finally relaxes, cherishing the unique bond they've built. Silence falls over the small hut as the night deepens, finally granting the travelers a moment of much-needed peace. Outside, even the local strays have curled up together in the moonlight, signaling that the day's chaos has finally ended. By morning, Chu Yen outlines their next objective: investigating the ruins of a mountain temple to find clues about the origin of the stone. With a final piece of advice and a polite farewell, the alchemist departs to handle her own pressing spiritual matters. The duo sets off through a lush bamboo forest, though Wan King still struggles to find her balance while walking on land. They soon arrive at a bustling mortal market that looks even more spectacular than the descriptions in any legend. A mouth-watering aroma from a nearby stall catches Wan King's attention, instantly pulling her toward the various vendors. She points eagerly at the local delicacies, her eyes lighting up with joy when she is told she can try them all. However, the sight of a fish banquet display sends a shiver of horror through her, prompting her protector to quickly offer comfort and a change of plans. Her culinary exploration hits a snag when a spicy tofu pudding leaves her tongue stinging with an unexpected heat. She desperately gulps down a bottle of sweet sugarcane juice to extinguish the fire in her mouth. Finally, she finds the perfect treated delicate, rabbit-shaped sugar candy that is every bit as sweet as she imagined. As the sun sets over the water, Wan King and Baiju discuss if they should head toward the ruins Chu Yen mentioned. Baiju notices a peculiar shop nearby, sensing a faint, strange energy radiating from within. A merchant calls out to them from the shadows, claiming that fate has led the two ladies to his stall. While Wan King looks on with innocent curiosity, Baiju remains vigilant as they step inside to browse. The man offers to paint a portrait of the duo, boasting that his artwork holds hidden mysteries. He presents a seemingly blank piece of paper, leaving the pair momentarily confused by the lack of ink. Suddenly, a silhouette of a bird manifests on the page, a magical display that leaves Wan King completely spellbound. The artist insists on performing the service free of charge as he prepares his brushes. Wan King is eager to see the result and encourages Baiju to participate in the session. The merchant instructs them to stand closer together to ensure the technical composition of the piece is perfect. They maintain a professional posture as the artist begins to sketch their likenesses. To capture their unique auras, the painter asks them to adjust their poses slightly. Baiju places a protective arm behind Wan King as requested, focusing entirely on the artistic process. Time passes as the shop exterior glows under the evening lights during the lengthy session. A crowd of onlookers gathers around the table, whispering in anticipation of the final reveal. The artist prepares to showcase the finished work to the gathered crowd and his subjects. However, his hand movements become suspiciously quick as he reaches for a hidden item. Baiju's immortal senses kick in, spotting the man attempting a subtle sleight of hand. Before the thief can complete his move, Baiju's hand shoots out to intercept him. Caught in the act, the man feigns innocence while struggling against Baiju's iron grip. Wan King watches the sudden confrontation with a look of utter bewilderment. Baiju calls out the fraud, explaining to the crowd that the painting was nothing more than a diversion. She reveals the stolen scroll the man tried to pocket, exposing his true identity as a thief. Realizing the artist was a criminal all along, Wan King reacts with wide-eyed shock. Desperate to escape, the thief lunges forward and tries to shove his past Wan King. Baiju moves instantly, pulling Wan King into a protective embrace to shield her from the collision. As the thief scrambles away, Baiju stays focused on ensuring her companion is unharmed. Once the authorities arrive to handle the situation, Baiju checks Wan King for any signs of injury. She explains that the mortal realm is a place where both beauty and deception coexist. Wan King is deeply impressed, praising Baiju for standing up to punish evil and promote good. Baiju accepts the compliment with a stoic but gentle expression. The grateful shopkeeper offers them a chance to examine the precious scroll that was nearly lost. As the parchment is unrolled, it reveals a breathtaking depiction of a mountain range. Disaster strikes when Wan King's foot catches on the floor, causing her to stumble. She accidentally spills her drink, drenching the ancient artwork in an instant. Wan King freezes in horror, staring at the wet ink as it begins to transform. Instead of ruining the piece, the water causes the ink to bleed and reveal a hidden landscape underneath. Baiju stares at the emerging mountains, feeling a sudden and profound sense of familiarity. A memory flashes back to a younger version of Baiju, who once accidentally spilled tea on a similar scroll. In that distant memory, a kind figure reached out to comfort the young immortal. The echoes of that past moment resonate deeply as Baiju gazes at the secret map. Wan King offers her humble apologies and compensation to the shopkeeper for the dampened scroll. Baiju ponders the impossible, wondering how a mountain of such stature could ever be washed away. The duo steps cautiously through the thicket, nearing the coordinates provided by Chu Yan. Despite reaching the exact location, Wan King scans the empty horizon with a look of pure confusion. Sensing a shift in the atmosphere, Baizhu spins around to survey their surroundings. Their footsteps pivot toward the path back, hoping to return to the safety of the market before nightfall. Panic sets in as Baizhu pulls Wan King close, realizing the bridge behind them has completely vanished. Steel resolve fills Baizhu's eyes as she prepares to protect her companion from the encroaching mystery. Out of the mist, a mysterious guardian emerges, clutching the very scroll they had seen before. The pair stands their ground, demanding an explanation for this sudden and strange confrontation. The woman offers a knowing smile, explaining that the scroll is a conduit to the past. A wave of shock hits them as they learn the missing mountain is contained within the ink and paper. Baizhu focuses intently on the rules of the realm, knowing they only have until an incense stick burns out. As they step forward, their forms begin to dissolve into the magical essence of the painting. Suddenly, a vision of the past flickers to life, showing two figures deep in a serious discussion. The intensity of the conversation causes tea to spill over the edge of a porcelain cup. The mentor figure explains the heavy burden of their technical craft, while maintaining a close watch over her student. With careful precision, the mentor tends to a stain on the other's sleeve, showing a sign of professional camaraderie. Smoke rises from a nearby burner as one of the figures drifts into a deep, supernatural slumber. The mentor holds the sleeping girl, her expression weighed down by the secrets of the immortal realm. They sit together on the floor, surrounded by the quiet stillness of the ancient chamber. The Ghost Gate coin is revealed, glowing with a dangerous, unstable power. Dark energy begins to manifest, swirling around the mentor as she prepares for a risky ritual. An observer watches from the shadows, warning that this path of sacrifice is not yet set in stone. Driven by a sense of duty to the people, the mentor remains steadfast in her decision to suppress the demonic energy. A silent vow is made as a finger is pressed against lips to seal the secret forever. The two share a final moment of mutual understanding before the weight of their mission takes over. One figure offers a brief moment of comfort, patting the surface beside her to signal a temporary rest. A hand reaches out in the fading memory, a testament to the bond shared between master and pupil. They lean on one another for support, facing the inevitable consequences of defying heavenly laws. Baizhu reflects on these fragments, realizing the focus was always on solving the impending flood. Walking through the painted world, the truth of the sacrifice becomes clear to the current travelers. Baizhu notes that the face of the mountain god is still obscured by the laws of the heavenly Tao. A sharp pang of realization hits Baizhu as she clutches her chest, feeling the echoes of the past. She looks out into the distance, questioning if the price paid by her predecessor was truly worth the outcome. Wan King stares wide-eyed as she reveals that the mysterious figure in the painting realm was obscured by a thick, unnatural fog. Baizhu holds her companion close, questioning if the forgotten figure was simply someone of no importance. A cold realization washes over Baizhu as she suspects the person's very existence was erased by the strict laws of the heavenly court. She wonders why she isn't being hunted yet, theorizing that an old friend might be pulling strings from the shadows. Baizhu recalls the Earth Immortal's words, trying to connect the dots between this old friend and the vision she just witnessed. The Earth Immortal's form begins to flicker as she coughs, admitting she is forbidden from speaking the truth directly. Shocked by the sudden change, Wan King watches the guardian transform from a healthy woman into a frail, haggard spirit. Baizhu maintains a calm front, assuring the group that she knows exactly where to find the legendary dragon pearls. With a faint, bittersweet smile, the guardian expresses her final gratitude for seeing the duo one last time. The magical rift of the mountain gate begins to dissolve into the air as its spiritual energy reaches its limit. Baizhu turns to Wan King with a stern warning to conserve their strength and avoid using any unnecessary magic. Tears well up in Wan King's eyes as she witnesses the guardian slowly shatter into glowing fragments of light. Contemplating her own mortality, Baizhu fears that she might also vanish into nothingness before finding the justice she seeks. She stares off into the distance, stoically accepting that the era of the mountain god is a relic of the past. Grasping a delicate jade ornament, Baizhu's eyes burn with a new resolve to fight against the cruelty of fate. Wan King breaks down in tears, accusing the immortal of being far too indifferent toward her own survival. In a fit of desperate emotion, the young mermaid wails that they must remain bound together forever, no matter the cost. Softening her heart, Baizhu gently strokes the girl's hair and promises to do everything in her power to stay by her side. Baizhu realizes that recovering her lost memories is the only way to truly solve the mystery of her current condition. She clenches her fist tightly around the artifact, determined to find a cure for her failing immortal body. The physical toll of the realm proves too much for Wan King, whose legs buckle as she clings to her protector. Acting quickly, Baizhu gathers the girl in her arms, deciding they must find a safe place to transfer spiritual energy. The pair arrives at a bustling post station, eyeing the horses they'll need to make a swift escape. Baizhu shocks the local attendant by presenting a prestigious golden token from the Manhwa palace. The magical atmosphere of the land sparkles around them as they prepare to venture further into the mortal world. A fleeting memory of a kind woman surfaces, recalling a time when she begged Baizhu to stay in touch through letters. Baizhu's expression turns pensive as she wonders if that person from her past would even welcome her return. Wan King struggles to stay upright while boarding the horse, her strength completely sapped by the journey. Baizhu expertly hauls her companion onto the saddle, ensuring she doesn't fall as they prepare to ride. Holding the girl close to stabilize her, Baizhu prepares to initiate a vital energy transfer as they gallop toward their next destination. The rhythmic beat of horse hooves echoes through the dark woods as they flee. Wan King clings to the reins, her mermaid tail making it nearly impossible to keep her balance. Noticing the awkward grip, she asks Baizhu to release her hand to find a better anchor. To secure herself, Wan King suggests using her long tail to coil around Baizhu's waist. Baizhu pulls her tight as the mermaid's tail firmly locks them together for the ride. They ride in a protective embrace, navigating the bumpy path as a single unit. Baizhu instructs her companion to reach into her robes for a vital spiritual artifact. Searching through the silk, Wan King's fingers find the cold jade pendant. Baizhu explains that the spiritual energy within the jade will trigger an immediate shape-shifting. Facing each other, they hold the glowing jade to initiate the energy transfer. The magic works instantly, but Baizhu realizes with a shock that Wan King's new form lacks proper attire. Embarrassed, Baizhu resolves to find a new outfit once they reach civilization. As they resume their journey, Wan King marvels at the freedom of riding through the wind. However, the mermaid points out a technical detail about their current seating arrangement. She innocently observes that the posture makes it feel like she's riding directly on top of her protector. Baizhu turns away, her stoic expression cracking under a rare moment of shyness. Soon, the massive walls of the capital loom ahead, signaling the end of their wilderness trek. Entering the bustling city, Baizhu leads the way through the crowded, lantern-lit streets. Now dressed in vibrant orange silks, Wan King stays close, overwhelmed by the urban scale. Baizhu issues a stern warning about the rigid social protocols governing the royal city. The mermaid's attention immediately drifts as she stares in awe at the festive atmosphere. They stumble upon a heated public debate regarding the princess allowing women into the imperial court. A sudden voice calling for royalty causes Baizhu to freeze in her tracks. She reflects on the weight of her hidden identity while standing among the commoners. Their path is suddenly blocked by a group of citizens looking for a specific individual. A woman from the crowd looks up, her eyes widening in total disbelief as she recognizes the traveler. Wan King is left utterly baffled when the woman addresses Baizhu as the prince consort. Wan King stands frozen as the townspeople explain that a prince consort is the manor in this case, the person engaged to the princess. Her jaw drops in utter disbelief at the thought of her traveling companion being betrothed to human royalty. Baizhu remains calm, meeting Wan King's gaze and promising to explain the complex misunderstanding later. A loyal official bows low before Baizhu, signaling that her return to the capital has not gone unnoticed. The group prepares to depart, with the official insisting on addressing Baizhu by her formal, royal title despite her protests. As they ride through the city, Baizhu realizes they are heading away from the imperial palace and toward a private estate. The official explains that the princess has stayed at this separate residence ever since Baizhu disappeared. Baizhu wonders if the princess is merely using their past connection as a political shield to avoid a forced marriage to a vassal king. They arrive at the gates of the estate, where the weight of the princess's defiance against the emperor's orders becomes clear. Baizhu begins to clarify that their relationship isn't what it seems, only to be interrupted as the doors open. Princess Yunning steps forward, her regal beauty and grace leaving Wan King completely breathless. Shaking her head frantically, Wan King tries to snap out of her trance to focus on this sudden romantic rival. The princess offers a faint, knowing smile as she welcomes her guest back after so much time. Inside the estate, Yunning pours a cup of green tea, remembering it as Baizhu's personal favorite. Baizhu maintains a professional distance, attempting to explain that her original appointment as a consort was based on a series of accidents. The princess listens with a stoic expression, her eyes fixed on the woman she once hoped to keep by her side. Yunning confesses that she knew Baizhu's true identity from the start, but found her to be the only person she could ever trust. Baizhu can only stare back, moved by the princess's blunt honesty and long-standing loyalty. A shadow of regret crosses the princess's face as she admits she was never able to convince Baizhu to stay. Yunning then turns her sharp gaze toward Wan King, asking if this girl is the true reason for Baizhu's constant wandering. Wan King blinks in surprise, feeling the weight of the princess's scrutiny for the first time. Suddenly, an urgent messenger interrupts, informing the princess that she is summoned to the palace to deal with strange anomalies in the water. Baizhu falls into deep thought, sensing that these demonic entities in the capital's water are tied to their own quest. Once they are left alone for the evening, a wide-eyed Wan King reaches out to grab Baizhu's sleeve. Looking down bashfully, she explains that her legs have become severely chafed from the unaccustomed horse ride. Baizhu immediately lifts the girl into her arms to carry her toward the bed for treatment. She sets Won King down gently, maintaining a focused and clinical demeanor to address the injury. With steady hands, Beiju begins the technical task of applying a soothing medicinal ointment to the irritated skin. Beiju remains focused on the medical task at hand, asking Won King if the treatment is causing her any discomfort. He gently applies the ointment to her injured legs, feeling a heavy weight of responsibility for her current condition. Beiju realizes his past hesitation to act was a mistake that led to her unnecessary suffering. Won King looks up with a weary expression, admitting that navigating the human world is far more grueling than she anticipated. The immortal gazes at her, his mind racing as he processes her candid admission. Suddenly, a flash of a forgotten memory flickers in his mind, feeling strangely familiar to him. Beiju is visibly stunned by the sudden mental resonance of her words. He tightens his grip on the medicine bottle, convincing himself the sensation was nothing more than a trick of the mind. Won King sheepishly scratches her head, explaining that her struggles go beyond just physical exhaustion. She recalls the public notices and the harsh debate she heard regarding the strict limitations placed on mortal women. The mermaid leans in close, noting how the romanticized storybooks never mentioned these societal barriers. Beiju listens as she compares this world to her own matriarchal tribe back in the sea. She looks him in the eyes, stating that she only truly understood the difficulty after witnessing it firsthand. Beiju asks her directly if she regrets her decision to leave her home for this realm. Won King embraces the moment, assuring him that having him by her side makes it all worthwhile. She touches his face gently, turning her thoughts toward the princess's new reforms. Won King expresses hope that the world will become a better place under leadership, like the princess's. She acknowledges that Beiju's hunt for demonic energy is a noble service for everyone. Beiju lowers his gaze, admitting that his pursuit of the corruption isn't entirely selfless. Won King counters his doubt by reminding him that a good deed should be judged by its impact, not its origin. The two share a quiet moment of mutual understanding as they reflect on their mission. The mood shifts as Won King hilariously reacts to the news that the princess personally looked after Beiju during his recovery. A flustered Beiju tries to explain the professional nature of the care he received while unconscious. He pauses, touching his lip as he considers the hardships he endured in the past. Won King watches him with deep empathy, sensing the hidden weight of his history. An ethereal vision of Beiju appears, illustrating the lonely path he walked without any kin to guide him. Won King promises to do everything in her power to support him and fulfill his requests. The scene transitions to a formal meeting where Beiju and Princess Yun Ning discuss urgent matters of state. Beiju stands ready as the princess begins to detail the terrifying anomalies occurring within the palace. Yun Ning explains that a mysterious red light has been overflowing from the garden pool every lunar month. The demonic energy has already claimed the sanity of high-ranking officials who were caught in its glow. Beiju's expression turns serious as he realizes the timing of the attacks follows a specific celestial pattern. The moon shines brightly above, serving as the catalyst for the trap set by an unknown mastermind. The princess and her attendant worry about the immense implications if this is truly demonic corruption. Beiju clarifies if the red light has been a recurring event over the past few months. He asks for the current location of the Xianing Pearl, hoping it holds the key to the mystery. Yun Ning hesitates, her face clouding over with a look of concern. She reveals that the pearl vanished during a chaotic fire, leaving them without their greatest tool. Beiju insists that they must enter the palace immediately to begin a thorough investigation. The princess takes a slow sip of tea, curious as to why Won King didn't join him today. Her attendant whispers the scandalous detail that Beiju was personally verifying the sizes for Won King's new clothing. The news causes the princess to blush, her mind racing with assumptions about their relationship. Meanwhile, Beiju remains completely stoic, sipping his tea with the poise of a man focused entirely on the mission. Princess Yun Ning quickly dismisses her attendants to discuss the urgent matters regarding the missing pearl in total secrecy. Beiju presses for details, asking how the palace is currently managing the servants who have fallen ill. Yun Ning explains the grim reality, revealing that the affected staff must be isolated to prevent them from attacking one another. Deep in thought, Beiju recalls the legend of the Ghost Gate coin and wonders if such a cursed object is hidden within these very walls. He questions why the Emperor hasn't summoned official sorcerers, only to find that the local Taoist masters are completely outmatched. Yun Ning admits she used a bit of deception, claiming her own spiritual training could protect the royal family's lifeblood without relying on outsiders. She reveals the history of the Xianing Pearl, a soul-condensing artifact that was essential for her own recovery as a child. Beiju listens intently as the princess describes how her past cultivation led her to cross paths with him long ago. In a surprising confession, she explains that she memorized his ancient spells to monitor the growing demonic threat. Her eyes burn with determination as she asks for his aid, hoping to secure power and fight for the rights of women across the land. Beiju considers the proposed plan, which involves him serving as a temporary consort before eventually vanishing back to the mountains. He remains wary, suspecting that a powerful demonic catalyst is drawing resentful energy into the palace from thin air. Taking a quiet moment, Beiju acknowledges that his current mortal vessel is reaching its limit and cannot handle much more strain. He stares at his trembling hand, realizing that his time is running out unless he can secure a morsel-returning grass. Despite the risks, he decides that bringing Wan King along is necessary, as her unique connection to water might provide a vital edge. Returning to the guest quarters, Beiju pushes open the door to check on his companion. Inside, he finds Wan King in a state of utter confusion, hopelessly tangled in the complex layers of her new human attire. Beiju steps forward with professional focus, carefully untying the intricate gauze robe to show her how the embellishments are meant to be worn. Wide-eyed and curious, Wan King looks up and asks if these elaborate garments are what humans wear on a daily basis. He explains that while the outfit is complex, it is perfectly suited for the humid summer nights when no one else is around. Wan King beams with innocent joy, expressing her deep gratitude to the princess for such a thoughtful gift. Maintaining a steady hand, Beiju meticulously ties the decorative ribbon around her waist to finish the ensemble. The scene triggers a memory of his own youth, when even powerful spirits struggled to find clothing that fit his unique form. He notes that while the hem is a bit long, the flowing fabric actually complements Wan King's elegant posture. She checks her reflection, wondering if she finally looks the part of a proper human lady. Beiju leans in to issue a formal invitation, asking if she is ready to see the most magnificent place on land, the Imperial Palace. He warns her that the court is a place of endless rules, and that she must keep her voice low to avoid drawing unwanted attention. Reaching out, he performs a final check of her appearance to ensure every detail is perfectly in place for their mission. He picks up a delicate golden comb, intending to style her hair with the precision required for a royal audience. As they prepare to leave, Wan King gazes out at the shimmering night sky, mesmerized by the beauty of the moon. Beiju stands ready, the Ghost Gate coin glowing with intense spiritual energy in his palm. He skillfully prepares a paper talisman to scan the shimmering, star-filled pond for hidden threats. Wan King watches in awe, mesmerized by the beautiful light reflecting off the water's surface. Beiju warns that the area might be an isolated domain where standard laws of reality don't apply. Wan King ponders if the demonic energy they felt previously is linked to this mysterious garden. Yun Ning expresses deep concern, while Beiju remains calm and focused on the spiritual investigation. Wan King decides to investigate the aquatic life, receiving a cautious nod of approval from Beiju. The mermaid leans over the bank, spotting two koi discussing the strange changes in their home. She asks the aging fish about their history in the pond to uncover clues about the corruption. The fish are stunned, realizing a human girl can actually understand their ancient aquatic language. After a sudden splash, Beiju gently wipes the water away from Wan King's damp face. He maintains a professional focus, while ensuring his companion is dry and comfortable. Yun Ning observes the pair, noting Baiju's impressive capabilities as a high-level cultivator. The princess prepares to depart, trusting the duo to handle the investigation in her absence. Beiju stops her, calling out to offer a final layer of spiritual defense. He presents a golden protection talisman, instructing her to use it if any danger arises. Yun Ning accepts the charm, sensing the weight of the underlying warning about palace traitors. A hidden observer's butterfly focuses intently on the copper coin hidden within Baiju's sleeve. The mysterious entity watches from the shadows, searching for a tactical opening to strike. Wan King reports that the fish have noticed the moon appearing unnaturally full lately. Beiju analyzes the report, realizing the lunar anomaly indicates a massive spiritual distortion. He reassures Wan King, prioritizing her well-being over the risks of exploring the deep pond. Suddenly, the copper coin vibrates with violent resonance as a powerful force reacts nearby. A massive surge of water erupts, dragging the investigators toward the heart of the domain. Submerged in the depths, Wan King drifts as ethereal butterflies swarm around her sinking form. Beiju analyzes the unnatural surroundings, noting that while the water ripples, the lunar reflection remains eerily frozen. Startled by the enemy's blinding speed, Beiju barely has time to react as a skeletal claw lunges from the darkness. Securing her companion, Beiju realizes the jade pendants they carry are actually sophisticated tracking beacons. Beiju positions herself as a shield, ordering Wan King to find cover while she prepares to face the approaching threat. With a defiant glare, Beiju demands the manipulator step out of the shadows and stop hiding behind parlor tricks. Brandishing a glowing spirit talisman, Beiju coldly offers to discuss the exact moment of the enemy's demise. The massive wings of a spectral butterfly unfurl, radiating a mocking energy at the warrior's bold threats. Swamped by a cyclone of blue wings, Beiju commands the captor to release her grip on the innocent mermaid. Unfazed by the mental assault, Beiju scoffs at the crude phantom, declaring it a poor imitation of the real Wan King. Narrowing her eyes, Beiju calculates her next move, determined to lure this evil spirit into a lethal trap. Beiju questions the enemy's arrogance, doubting they truly comprehend the treacherous power of the artifact they seek. The enemy tightens the butterfly's hold on the hostage, using the mermaid's precarious state as leverage for information. Exerting her own spiritual pressure, Beiju reveals she could have broken free at any time if not for her companion's safety. Beiju initiates a high-stakes bluff, proposing a mutual withdrawal to stabilize the volatile situation. A dark pact is formed in the eye of the storm as both sides agree to a temporary cessation of hostilities. The manipulator acknowledges the mermaid's value to Baiju, promising a safe return once their objective is met. Sharpening her focus, Baiju demands to know how this entity first learned of the Ghost Gate coin's existence. A brilliant lunar orb pulses with energy, serving as the heart of this distorted spiritual landscape. Suspended in the void, the two adversaries maintain a fragile truce while surrounded by swirling shadow energy. Baiju's keen eyes finally pierce through the deception, locating the exact origin of the butterfly swarm's power. Channeling her intent through the copper coin, Baiju prepares to strike at the enemy's newly discovered vulnerability. The illusion shatters to reveal a terrifying skeletal specter. It's true, ghastly form laid bare by Baiju's tactical brilliance. Baiju identifies a suspicious streak of moonlight, realizing the water butterfly is a diversion meant to expose a critical vulnerability. He reveals that the Ghost Gate coin was a calculated lure to force the enemy into revealing their true form within the aquatic illusion. With a steady hand, he maintains control over the coin's sealed power to prevent the array from collapsing prematurely. He issues a chilling ultimatum, promising dire consequences should the specter dare to lay a single hand on the sleeping mermaid. Baiju is taken aback as Wan Qing's sheer indignation causes her spiritual energy to spike with unpredictable intensity. He observes the corruptive miasma surrounding her begin to dissipate as she starts to regain consciousness on her own. It becomes clear that she is circulating her own spiritual energy, a feat of resilience that surpasses his initial expectations. Wan Qing finally opens her eyes, her gaze blurry as she tries to make sense of the shimmering environment. She notes the strange phenomenon of the moon's reflection shifting back into a crescent shape as the domain begins to fade. Baiju pulls her close to ensure her safety, though the strain of the battle forces a pained cough from his lips. The pair finally exits the supernatural realm, materializing amidst the quiet shadows of the palace gardens. Seeing his weakened state, Wan Qing looks up with deep concern, offering to return her own energy to help him recover. Baiju offers a reassuring gesture, lightly flicking her nose while insisting that a brief moment of rest is all he needs. Standing side by side, they take a moment to breathe, knowing the immediate threat of the illusion has been neutralized. Their peace is shattered by a sharp cry for help echoing through the courtyard. Peering through the foliage, they discover Princess Yun Ning being intercepted by a man claiming the palace is under a state of exorcism. The arrogant noble grips Yun Ning's arm tightly, dismissing her protests with a sneer of pure insolence. Baiju's eyes narrow with icy resolve as he begins to gather spiritual power for a silent intervention. A sudden, invisible force slams into the intruder, forcing him to release the princess in a daze of confusion. The Prince of Changyang clutches his face in shock, frantically demanding to know who would dare to ambush royalty. Baiju calmly steps into the light, his presence commanding as he questions who would ever dream of being disrespectful to such a prestigious prince. Baiju steps forward with icy composure, questioning how a man of the prince's status could be so remarkably disrespectful. Stunned by the interruption, the prince clutches his bruised face and demands to know the identity of the pretty boy standing before him. Wan Qing puffs out her cheeks in a fit of chibi-sized rage, finding the pretty boy insult both inaccurate and incredibly annoying. Baiju maintains a professional distance while leaning in to whisper the political details of the prince's identity to a curious Wan Qing. The prince points an accusing finger, convinced that the sudden, violent gust of wind was the result of the duo's forbidden demonic arts. Baiju calmly refutes the accusation, explaining that the courtyard pool is teeming with genuine evil spirits responsible for the disturbance. Refusing to be intimidated, the prince sneers that a mere Taoist title won't protect them from his royal wrath. The prince's gaze shifts with unsettling greed as he notes that the little beauty by Baiju's side is quite the prize. He callously suggests to the princess that she should hand the girl over as a political bribe to win over local officials. As the prince lunges forward to seize Wan Qing, Baiju instantly positions himself as an impenetrable shield. Before the prince can make contact, an invisible force slams into his jaw, sending him reeling back in agony. Baiju maintains a perfectly innocent expression, suggesting the evil spirit simply couldn't stand the prince's presence and advises him to leave. Another sharp, unseen strike catches the prince across the face, cutting his threats short. Humiliated and terrified of the unseen ghosts, the prince turns tail and sprints away into the darkness. Wan Qing stares up at Baiju, her eyes wide with newfound admiration for his silent and efficient handling of the bully. Princess Yunning lets out a heavy sigh, explaining that her father's previous marriage arrangements are the only reason the man remains so bold. Wan Qing looks on with a heavy heart, realizing that the romantic stories she's read are far removed from the cold reality of palace life. The trio stands together in the garden as Yun laments the heavy burden of being a sacrifice for the royal family's legacy. Looking toward the night sky, the princess reflects on the isolation that comes with her highborn status. Baiju acknowledges the grim truth that imperial families have been defined by ruthlessness for generations. He urges the princess to keep the spiritual talisman close, warning that the prince may soon resort to even more desperate measures. Baiju is visibly shaken when the princess reveals they were only gone for 15 minutes, despite their hours spent underwater. He forms a focus seal with his hands, mentally calculating the dangerous implications of the time dilation within the pool. A palace guard interrupts the gravity of the moment to report the arrival of a mysterious Taoist nun at the gates. A steady hand reveals a shimmering golden artifact, signaling the arrival of a powerful new ally. Chu Yan steps into the light, her presence radiating a calm and professional mastery of her craft. The group's tension breaks as Chu Yan greets them with a familiar and welcoming energy. Chu Yan leans in to conduct a quick physical assessment of Wan King, noting her health after her time on land. Baizhu formally introduces his colleague to the princess, stating her technical expertise is vital for the investigation. Chu Yan immediately gets to work, taking Baizhu's hand to perform a professional diagnostic of her spiritual pulse. Her expression shifts to one of deep clinical concern as she senses the true extent of the damage to Baizhu's core. She produces a concentrated medicinal pill, instructing Baizhu to take it immediately to stabilize her energy. Wan King watches the medicine intently, a spark of recognition crossing her face as she examines the elixir. She flashes back to the depths of the sea, realizing this is the same potent medicine she once used to save Baizhu's life. Anxiety grips Wan King as she wonders if Baizhu's current relapse was caused by overexerting her strength during the rescue. Tears threaten to fall as Wan King desperately asks Chu Yan for an honest update on Baizhu's deteriorating condition. Chu Yan adopts a more casual tone, suggesting they borrow rare ingredients from the Imperial Pharmacy to speed up the recovery. Baizhu and Wan King exchange a look of realization, knowing full well that Chu Yan's definition of borrowing is actually high-stakes robbery. Chu Yan reassures the worried group that Baizhu's condition is stable as long as she stays consistent with her medicine. To ensure a full recovery, Chu Yan suggests a daring plan to borrow rare ingredients from the princess's Imperial Pharmacy. Baizhu shifts the focus to the pool's anomaly, asking Yunning if any strange events occurred in the palace 2 decades ago to find a connection. Princess Yunning contemplates the request, noting that the Directorate of Astronomy would be the best place to find such historical records. The princess departs to investigate the archives, leaving the others to recover within the safety of the medical bureau. Once they are alone, Wan King corners Baizhu, her eyes searching for the truth behind the immortal's stoic facade. Baizhu stares at her palm, the faint glow of spiritual instability betraying her calm exterior to her companion. Seeing this brief flicker of vulnerability, Wan King's heart sinks as she realizes the situation is more dire than they first claimed. Chu Yan's previous technical advice regarding energy synchronization flashes through Wan King's mind as a potential solution to save her friend. Determined to help, Wan King steps closer, offering to link their spiritual energies to stabilize Baizhu's fracturing core. Baizhu offers a sad smile, explaining that the level of assistance needed is far beyond what Wan King can safely provide. Refusing to back down, Wan King insists on trying the circulation, despite knowing her own cultivation level is relatively shallow. She recalls her own fragile state, willing to sacrifice her very essence if it means saving the person she cares for most. Baizhu explains that Wan King's natural talent is a rare gift from the heavenly Tao, making the risk of a backlash too high to ignore. Wan King argues that even a return to her original animal form would be a small price to pay for Baizhu's safety. Overwhelmed by the girl's selflessness, Baizhu pulls her into a firm, protective embrace to stop the reckless proposal. They stand together in a heavy silence, the weight of their mutual concern hanging in the cool night air. High above, the crescent moon casts a sharp light over the garden, a silent witness to their internal struggle. A spectral vision of a trapped spirit serves as a grim reminder of the technical consequences of failed energy transfers. Baizhu maintains a strict boundary, reiterating that she will never allow Wan King to endanger her own life force for a temporary fix. The tension is broken when Chu Yan pops back in, ready to move from personal matters to the serious business of the array. Seated at a table, Chu Yan analyzes the latest data on Baizhu's pulse, confirming she pushed her limits too hard during the last fight. The Taoist master identifies 2 core mysteries: the timing of the red light and the constant full moon illusion in the pool. Activating a magical astrolabe, she explains the lunar concept of Shengpo, the absolute peak of spiritual energy. She then contrasts it with Yupo, the encroaching darkness that gains power as the moon begins to wane. As the magical diagrams spin, she theorizes that the pool's reflection is a direct barometer for the caster's current health. Baizhu realizes the enemy is using the Ghost Gate coin to artificially sustain a state of peak power for someone else. The group listens intently as they piece together why the red light only appears during these specific lunar transitions. A complex diagram illustrates how the slowing of time underwater is used to decelerate the caster's physical decay. It becomes clear that the antagonist is desperate for the coin, because one of their own is on the brink of total collapse. Wan King reacts with shock, realizing how the enemy's survival depends entirely on stealing their powerful artifact. She notes the striking technical similarity between the enemy's preservation method and Baizhu's current energy needs. Desperate for a solution, Wan King asks if they can adapt the enemy's energy circulation technique to heal Baizhu. Baizhu immediately pulls her close, shielding her from the dangerous idea of using such volatile and dark methods. She locks eyes with Wan King, firmly stating that their path must remain pure and separate from the dark arts of evil spirits. Chuyen watches in awe as golden threads of spiritual energy flow effortlessly from Wan Qing's body. Realizing the mermaid can synchronize her power with Baizhu even without a catalyst, the light reveals that this immense spiritual reservoir is naturally contained within Wan Qing, presenting a rare opportunity for their survival. Seated at the table, Chuyen turns the conversation toward Baizhu's condition, questioning if the immortal is far more fragile than she appears on the surface. Wan Qing listens intently, her hands resting near the table as the gravity of the situation begins to set in. The tension in the room thickens as Chuyen highlights the instability of Baizhu's core. Taking a slow sip of tea, Chuyen explains that because Baizhu's current form isn't a living being, it lacks the ability to circulate energy independently. She emphasizes that while Wan Qing's small sacrifices help, they aren't a permanent fix, though the presence of a certain evil spirit might actually be a fated coincidence. To ensure total privacy, Chuyen conjures a shimmering barrier around the table, shielding their discussion from prying ears. She leans in, proposing that since Wan Qing's energy capacity is so high, they could use the Ghost Gate coin as a conduit for a radical procedure. The plan involves using the coin as the core of a Taoist alchemy array to circulate and repair Baizhu's spiritual energy from within. Baizhu immediately shuts the idea down, sternly reminding Chuyen that tampering with demonic energy is a line they cannot cross. The risks are catastrophic, ranging from a total loss of sanity to the complete shattering of one's soul, ending any hope of reincarnation. Even with only a chance of failure, Baizhu refuses to gamble with Wan Qing's life for her own sake. Accepting the refusal, Chuyen refocuses on the task at hand and continues preparing tea for the group. Baizhu shifts her gaze, recalling the legends of the Xianing Pearl and its potential connection to the palace's mysteries. She deduces that the full moon reflected in the depths of the palace pool isn't a reflection at all, but the missing pearl itself. The trio discusses how every piece of the puzzle from the pool to the pearl seems inextricably linked to the element of water. Chuyen reveals her divination results, sensing that the energies of the Eastern Sea and this palace are both lying in wait for Baizhu. Determination flares in Baizhu's eyes as she decides it's time to stop reacting and finally take control of the situation. Seeing the two deep in a conversation she can't hear, Wan Qing watches with a worried expression, feeling left in the dark. She wonders if Baizhu is still keeping secrets, because she fears Wan Qing might sense the true weight of her internal struggle. A flash of memory or instinct crosses her mind, questioning why she feels such a profound connection to this old friend from the past. Sensing Wan Qing's distress, Baizhu gently dissolves the barrier and reaches out to comfort her. Wan Qing snaps back to the present, her eyes widening as she finds Baizhu looking at her with genuine concern. She immediately clings to Baizhu, pouting and demanding to know why they were whispering behind a shield. Chuyen decides to lighten the mood with a mischievous grin, teasing the mermaid about who gets to sleep with Baizhu tonight. In an adorable display of possessiveness, a chibi Wan Qing insists that she will obviously be the one staying by Baizhu's side. Chuyen plays along, suggesting that Wan Qing should sleep alone for once, but the mermaid refuses to leave her protector. Wan Qing fretfully imagines the dangers of being discovered as a mermaid, fearing she'll end up as a deep-fried tribute if she wanders off. Baizhu holds the anxious mermaid close, noting that their busy schedule has left them both exhausted and hungry. Chuyen strikes a deal, offering to take Wan Qing to get food, so she can have a moment alone to discuss medical treatments with Baizhu. Even in the mortal realm, the Imperial Palace offers delicacies that far outshine anything found in the depths of the ocean. Satisfied after the feast, Wan Qing rubs her stomach and leans comfortably against Baizhu's side. Baizhu remains composed, pouring a fresh cup of tea to help her companion digest the heavy meal. The mermaid takes her first sip of the brew, finding the liquid to be a stark and fascinating contrast to seawater. She beams with delight, noting how the initial bitterness gives way to a subtle, lingering sweetness. Chuyen observes them from across the table, remarking that she's already had her fill just watching the two of them. Setting aside the pleasantries, Chuyen gathers the group to head toward the pharmacy and secure Baizhu's medicine. They arrive at the bustling heart of the palace medical wing, where the air is thick with the scent of various concoctions. Wan Qing scans the room, overhearing gossip about the high-ranking noble consorts who frequent the pharmacy. At the counter, Chuyen receives a neatly wrapped bundle of herbs essential for Baizhu's core recovery. Chuyen leans in to whisper a discovery, having caught the scent of herbs used specifically to stabilize a pregnancy. This revelation raises immediate red flags, as the Emperor's long-standing illness makes a recent pregnancy highly suspicious. Wan Qing listens in shock, struggling to wrap her head around the lengthy duration of a human term. The attendant reveals the centerpiece of the order, a tray of fresh, vibrant soul-condensing grass. Chuyen confirms the supply is enough for a month, though she admits the prescription was actually provided by a mysterious third party. Wan Qing is immediately impressed, assuming that only a legendary doctor could have crafted such a perfect formula. Chuyen clarifies that while she doesn't know the person's name, they were undoubtedly a powerful cultivator. She recalls the shadowy figure of a Taoist priest, who shared the secret of how to properly utilize this rare vegetation. Seeing the abundance of resources available, Wan Qing suggests they take advantage of the palace's vast stock. Her only concern is Baizhu's weakened state, and she insists that more medicine is needed to ensure a full recovery. Chu Yan finds the mermaid's protective streak endearing and agrees to grab a bit more than originally planned. They decide to essentially rob the current month's supply to ensure Baizhu never runs out of her vital treatment. Wan King momentarily hesitates, worrying that the princess might be angry if they are caught being so greedy. However, the group quickly decides that Baizhu's safety is the priority, opting to take the extra precautions regardless of the risk. The pharmacy worker politely complies with their request, heading back into the storage area for more. He returns with 2 ornate boxes, mentioning that the emperor has barely touched the current stock of grass. Chu Yan's professional gaze sharpens as she picks up a single strand to verify its quality. Her face turns cold as she realizes the truth. These boxes are filled with useless fakes that lack any life-sustaining energy. Wan King begins to panic at the sight of the forged medicine, but Baizhu quickly pulls her close to keep her calm. Baizhu stares intensely at the imitation herbs, wondering who in the palace would go to such lengths to swap the medicine. In the depths of the sea, while most fish leave their young to fend for themselves, the advanced aquatic tribes raise their offspring with the same care as humans. Chu Yan wastes no time, instructing the group to report the swapped herbs to Princess Yin Ning to see if the king's medicine has also been compromised. She hesitates to perform a divination, however, knowing that the presence of the Emperor's Ziwei star will cloud her visions. Baizhu looks on as they realize the box of real herbs wasn't hidden well, but rather left out specifically for them to find as a lure. Watching the innocent mermaid, Chu Yan silently wonders if this girl is the anomaly capable of seeing truths beyond the boundaries of fate. As the sun sets over the imperial palace, the golden architecture masks a growing web of treachery. A mysterious man slips through the halls, heading toward a clandestine meeting with a powerful ally. Behind a privacy screen, he reports that he successfully tested the waters of the pool to see if the princess had discovered their secret. The man reveals his true colors, planning to lead his own troops into the palace to join forces with those seeking to suppress Yin Ning. He confirms that he has already cursed the pool and tampered with the old geezer's medicine to ensure the throne is vacated soon. Reaching out, he promises the pregnant consort that he will crown her as his empress once their plan succeeds. The woman's gaze is cold and calculating as she asks how he intends to handle his current engagement to the princess. He pulls her close, dismissing Yin Ning as a future prisoner and vowing to make his move while the king's protection is at its weakest. Everything hinges on a master's prophecy, with the conspirator believing that his total victory is only one move away. Back in the safety of their room, Wan King calls out to Baizhu, seeking comfort after a long day of investigation. Baizhu begins a technical medical treatment on the mermaid, warning her that a dangerous storm is about to break over the palace. Wan King lies back, reflecting on how such a magnificent place can hide so many dark and deadly secrets. She finds the human world's wooden beds incredibly stiff, longing for the soft, familiar embrace of the seawater. With a sudden spark of inspiration, she asks Baizhu if they can share a more comfortable resting spot to escape the hard furniture. Baizhu obliges, offering a gentle shoulder for the mermaid to rest her head against. Wan King settles in happily, finding the proximity of her companion far more relaxing than any palace luxury. She wiggles her feet, noticing that her aquatic physiology is helping her injuries heal at an accelerated rate. Baizhu prepares the next stage of the treatment, reaching for a specialized scar removal ointment. Maintaining a strictly professional focus, Baizhu applies the medicine to Wan King's legs to ensure the palace's treatment works effectively. Baizhu recalls how quiet Wan King was at the pharmacy, realizing she had been searching for this specific medicine all along. The mermaid expresses her deep gratitude, feeling safe and protected under Baizhu's constant care. Baizhu continues the session, carefully channeling spiritual energy to soothe the cooling sensation of the ointment. The immortal explains that Chu Yan added protective spells to the treatment to safeguard Wan King's heart during the energy transfer. Baizhu remains focused on the task, ensuring the spiritual flow passes through the mermaid's body without disturbance. Wan King looks up with wide, curious eyes, wondering if there is any way she can finally return the favor and help her friend. Baizhu embraces her, acknowledging that the mermaid's unexpected nature is exactly what makes her so special. Wan King thinks back on her chaotic journey, from dodging hungry cats to escaping boiling fishhooks. She realizes that despite the dangers of the land, meeting people like Yun Ning and Chu Yan has made it all worthwhile. In a moment of quiet sincerity, the mermaid confesses that out of everyone she has encountered, Baizhu is her favorite. The atmosphere thickens as Baizhu leans in close to Wan King, carefully monitoring the mermaid's spiritual pulse during their recovery session. A faint flush creeps across Baizhu's face as she realizes the intensity of the moment, though she quickly maintains her professional composure. Breaking the silence with a sudden cough, Baizhu listens as Wan King offers to transfer some of her own spiritual energy to aid in the healing process. Baizhu pulls her closer to better gauge the flow, marveling at how Wan King's extraordinary talent allows her to circulate such powerful energy so efficiently. Deciding it's time to conclude the session, Baizhu announces she must head back to coordinate with Chu Yan on the next round of medicine. Wan King watches her departure with a dazed, lingering expression, clearly affected by the immortal's presence. As night falls, a massive spectral butterfly hovers over the sleeping Wan King, whispering a hypnotic invitation for her to join the aquatic tribes in the deep pool. Under the weight of the enchantment, Wan Qing's eyes glow with an eerie blue light as she rises from her bed in a total trance. She wanders through the palace courtyard like a ghost, completely unaware of the trap she is walking into. From the shadows, Chu Yen monitors the situation with a mystical compass, noting that their preparations for this specific threat were well-timed. Just as the trap is about to spring, Beixu intercepts Wan Qing, shielding her and demanding that the unseen enemy surrender immediately. The hidden adversary reveals their trump card, the Zaning Pearl, which explains how they were able to bypass Beixu's sophisticated spiritual barriers. The glowing butterflies continue to lure the entranced mermaid toward the water's edge in the neighboring courtyard. Chu Yen explains the grim reality. Wan Qing's internal resentment makes her a perfect magnet for these dark, demon-attracting arrays. The massive spirit butterfly prepares to dive, intending to drag the girl's consciousness into the depths. Time is running out as the moon's reflection on the pool's surface expands, signaling the peak of the ritual. Beixu reaches out to touch the shimmering air, only to find a hidden seal blocking her path. The barrier reacts violently, repelling Beixu with a golden shockwave that leaves even the immortal stunned. In a flash of insight, Beixu's mind races back to a vision of a mysterious man in a straw hat who once used similar blue energy techniques. She realizes with a start that this current crisis might be directly linked to a person from her long-forgotten past. Deep within the mental illusion, Wan Qing finds herself underwater, being beckoned by a false projection of Beixu. Wan Qing's eyes remain clouded, her will completely submerged by the bewitching power of the aquatic tribe's spell. The imposter leans in, manipulating Wan Qing's emotions by asking if she would be willing to do anything for her. Trapped in the dream, Wan Qing's only desire is to hear the fake Beixu call out her name one more time. The predatory spirit gently touches Wan Qing's face, demanding that she hand over her entire being to the illusion. The false Beixu looms over her, the weight of the possession becoming so heavy that Wan Qing struggles to even breathe. The demon finally drops the facade, whispering that it only requires Wan Qing's physical body as a vessel. Suddenly, the dream world begins to crack and splinter like a sheet of breaking glass. The real Beixu shatters the barrier with a powerful golden talisman, roaring a final warning as she prepares to reclaim her friend. Beixu stands firm, her aura radiating with a brilliant golden light as the aquatic intruders realize they've been intercepted far sooner than expected. Standing alongside Chu Yen, Beixu reveals that their timely arrival was only possible thanks to the guidance of an unexpected benefactor. Princess Yun Ning's past resonance with the Zaning Pearl allows her to bypass the barrier, her spiritual energy weaving through the water like golden threads. With a look of solemn determination, the princess urges the group to move quickly and rescue Wan Qing before it's too late. Beixu stares down the malicious entities, questioning why they persist in targeting an innocent soul with such a thankless and cruel method. Channeling her celestial power, Beixu commands the spirit to surrender the Ghost Gate coin and release its hold on the girl. However, a skeletal grip suddenly tightens around Wan Qing's throat, as the entity from the shadows refuses to let go of its prize. The spirit sneers that Wan Qing is its only path to freedom, tightening its hold as the girl gasps for air in the midst of the chaos. Beixu realizes with a shock that the evil spirit is rapidly recovering its strength by siphoning power through the possession. Deep within the spiritual resonance, a vision of two figures emerges, one towering with a divine presence over the other. A woman with dark hair offers a faint, mysterious smile as the echoes of the past begin to reveal their secrets. The silver-haired immortal gazes back, her expression filled with a complex mixture of duty and hidden sorrow. Holding her companion close, the immortal demands to know why she would sacrifice herself and shoulder the wrath of the heavens alone. Tears stream down the dark-haired woman's face as she confesses that no heavenly decree could ever outweigh her devotion. The immortal can only watch in silence, her heart heavy with the weight of a choice she never wanted to make. In a desperate embrace, the dark-haired woman vows to take her companion away from this place of suffering. But the reality of their situation is grim, as unbreakable chains forged from dragon iron keep them tethered to their fate. Leaning against her friend, she warns that the corruptive power of the nether water will soon consume them both if they do not part ways. A single tear falls from her eye as she begs for this one final request to be heard. With a final heartbreaking smile, she urges her friend to find a new life in the mortal realm and leave the darkness behind. The silver-haired woman vows to accompany her companion on a journey to the mortal realm, seeking a life far from the heavens. Her eyes reflect a newfound determination as she prepares for the transition to a simpler, more fragile existence. Amidst the falling leaves, they find a moment of peace while discussing the inherent pains and physical toll of becoming mortal. She offers a sincere apology for her lack of experience in these matters, her gaze softening with genuine care. They share a quiet, supportive embrace, reinforcing their commitment to one another despite the risks ahead. With a gentle smile, the dark-haired girl looks forward to a future where they can finally exist without constant conflict. A shared look of understanding passes between them, cementing their resolve to remain side by side. Memories of their long shared history flicker like shards of light, representing the countless days they have already endured together. Returning to the harsh reality of the present, The silver-haired woman prepares to give everything she has left to save her friend from the chains. She commands her companion to return to the mortal realm alone, where a life of peace and belonging finally awaits her. The dark-haired woman awakens with a start, realizing her memories were nearly stolen by a desperate, protective spell. Defying the magical suppression, she stands her ground and highlights how much their dynamic has shifted. She leans in with intense focus, proving that her will is now just as strong as any immortal's sacrifice. Suddenly, a spectral entity manifests from the energy, reaching out to harvest the girl's essence through the power of the Ghost Gate coin. The spirit demands total submission, its glowing aura masking a predatory and calculated intent. Baizhu charges into the fray alongside Yunning, refusing to let the dark ritual continue for another second. Baizhu's voice rings out in a fierce command, her expression hardening with a sharp, protective instinct. The malevolent force laughs off the threat, claiming the girl has already opened her heart to its overwhelming dark power. A hauntingly calm expression settles on the girl's face as the spirit's influence takes full, chilling control of her body. Baizhu grits her teeth and screams for the entity to release its grip on her friend. Yunning stands firm behind her, warning that pursuing this dark ritual will lead to absolute ruin. The possessed girl's expression softens as she reflects on the forbidden choices made in a past life. Baizhu's eyes widen in disbelief as the spirit reveals it has glimpsed her most guarded memories. A vivid vision of a mountain god's ultimate sacrifice for a mortal companion manifests before them, bridging the gap between eras. The entity mocks the silver-haired immortal, noting that the person she saved has no memory of her selfless deed. Stunned by the revelation, Baizhu can barely process the weight of these forgotten lifetimes crashing down on her. She clutches her head in a daze, desperately trying to distinguish the spirit's cruel illusions from the truth. Floating amidst a swirl of spectral energy, the possessed girl beckons Baizhu to join her and leave their divine burdens behind. The entity closes the distance, reaching out to guide Baizhu into a deceptive and dangerous spiritual pact. Baizhu remains frozen as the spirit's touch lingers, her mind racing to understand how an outsider could know such private details. The spirit's gaze turns sharp as it challenges the immortal's resolve to remain a saint during this crisis. In a tense spiritual standoff, the entity demands total surrender of the immortal's physical form to complete the ritual. Suddenly, a violent surge of golden energy pierces through the vision, shattering the manipulation with a brutal impact. Yunning watches helplessly as the intense magical recoil sends shockwaves through the chamber. The spectral entity is paralyzed with shock as One King's true consciousness begins to fight back against the possession. A fierce light ignites within her eyes, signaling a powerful backlash that the spirit never anticipated from a mortal. Baizhu stares in awe as the girl she was trying to save finally looks back at her with a glimmer of genuine recognition. Baizhu reels in disbelief, her hand pressed to her heart as she struggles to comprehend how a soul cleansed by reincarnation could possibly retain its ancient memories. As the mysterious Ghost Gate coin tumbles through the depths, Baizhu remains frozen, convinced that this impossible revelation must be another cruel trick played by the evil spirit. The spectral image of Wan King's soul shimmers behind her physical form, raising the terrifying possibility that the coin has successfully channeled its forbidden power to bridge the gap between lifetimes. A shadowy figure from the past warns of the extreme danger, explaining that failing to suppress a seized soul will result in a devastating spiritual backlash for the wielder. The entity's glowing eyes widen in terror as its power begins to rapidly backfire, realizing it can no longer maintain its stolen human form. Surrounded by a swirling vortex of dark energy, the spirit desperately pleads for the mermaid's safety, knowing that its own memories and essence are about to be laid bare. A vision of a weeping woman flickers into existence, her final words a bittersweet wish for her companion to live on after her sacrifice. Distraught and surrounded by ethereal butterflies, the figure questions the point of an ignoble existence in a realm that offers no true refuge for their kind. Observing the unfolding tragedy from a distance, Yunning reflects on the profound depth of the bond shared between the water and moon immortals. The glowing butterflies reflect in Yunning's focused gaze as she silently compares the legends of old to the struggle currently happening before her. Baizhu reaches out through the bubbles, her stoic mask finally cracking as she moves to stabilize the drifting mermaid. Sensing the immediate shift in the spiritual energy, Baizhu focuses entirely on the fragile life currently in her care. With a swift and protective motion, Baizhu catches Wan King and pulls her into a firm, supportive hold to keep her from sinking further into the abyss. Wan King's eyes snap open, flooding with tears of pure relief the moment she realizes she is finally safe in the arms of her protector. Overwhelmed by the terrifying ordeal, the mermaid clings tightly to Baizhu, who offers a calm and steadying presence to soothe her fears. Baizhu gazes down with a quiet intensity, internally debating whether the visions she just witnessed were merely illusions or something far more significant. Leaning against Baizhu, Wan King softly reveals that while she was under the spirit's control, she caught a glimpse of another version of herself from the distant past. Baizhu listens in silence, her expression unreadable as the mermaid describes the strange, watery world she saw in her trance. Wan King looks away, her voice trembling slightly as she tries to make sense of the fragmented memories that resurfaced during the possession. With a look of pure innocence, the mermaid recalls seeing a vision of the two of them sharing a moment of deep spiritual connection through a breath-sharing ritual. Wan King gasps for air, her mind swirling with fragments of a vision she doesn't yet understand. She questions the existence of another version of herself, one who has shared countless trials with the man before her. A memory of a desperate, spiritual breath-sharing ritual underwater flickers through her mind, leaving her questioning what is real. Baizhu holds her steady amidst the rising bubbles, his concern for her safety overriding everything else. The moment is abruptly broken by an authoritative cough as Chuyen reminds them that the danger hasn't passed. Wan King pulls back, her face flushing with a mix of confusion and sudden self-consciousness. Suddenly, a sharp pain lances through her head as the residual spiritual energy begins to surge violently. Chuyen presents a fractured copper coin, revealing that this artifact is a deliberate, twisted imitation of the real thing. Baizhu's expression hardens as he realizes the moon cultivator has likely used bizarre methods to plant a dark seed within Wan King's soul. He pulls her close, preparing to guide her through the technical process of stabilizing her internal energy. As their spirits intertwine for the healing process, a powerful resonance triggers a vivid descent into a memory from a lifetime long forgotten. In a much simpler time, a younger Baizhu tries to hide his secret trips to the mortal realm from his watchful companion. She brushes off his excuses, eager to share a new lesson about the fascinating customs of the humans below. A steaming pot of food appears on the table as she begins to demonstrate the technical way to handle chopsticks. The two sit together in the quiet light, discussing the profound symbolism hidden within the simple design of the eating utensils. Baizhu watches her intently, hanging on every word as she explains the hidden meanings of the mortal world. She reveals that the specific length of the chopsticks represents the 7 emotions and 6 desires that define humanity. Her gaze turns serious as she highlights the fundamental divide between the divine and the mortal. She warns that for beings like them, harboring personal feelings is a path that leads only to disaster. Her eyes reflect a stern truth. For an immortal, the act of attachment is considered an unforgivable sin. Young Baizhu processes this heavy revelation, his gaze fixed on the woman who is teaching him about the laws of the universe. Despite the warning, he feels a forbidden warmth in his chest, wondering if his simple desire to stay by her side is already a transgression. Through the haze of memory, the young immortal experiments with proximity, wondering how such closeness would change the nature of their bond. Back in the mortal realm, Wan King uses a simple pair of chopsticks to lecture on the importance of moderation and discipline. A gentle hand rests on Baizhu's head, serving as a silent warning not to cross the line between divine duty and personal desire. Overwhelmed by the weight of her unspoken feelings, the young Baizhu struggles to maintain her composure in the face of such kindness. In the present, Wan King is completely captivated by these glimpses of Baizhu's adorable past, momentarily forgetting the dark seed within her. As the vision shifts, they revisit the moment the dark spirit first began to manipulate their shared history. Standing before a lonely stone monument in the biting cold, Wan King vows to create a permanent sanctuary for her companion. Despite the brewing disaster among the tribes, she prepares to journey into the heart of the conspiracy to expose the truth. She leaves behind strict orders to ensure Baizhu's ascension to the throne, even if she herself does not return from this mission. A voice from the shadows questions why she would risk everything for the sake of the living beings in these mountains. Looking toward the heavens, she admits her motives are far more personal than simple divine benevolence. The stone tablet marked with the title of Mountain God stands as a silent witness to her hidden sacrifice. Seasons bleed into one another as the monument remains undisturbed, a testament to a promise kept across time. Years pass in the mortal realm while the gods remain distant, leaving the stone to weather the changing winds alone. Baizhu finally returns in the vision, her hand trembling as she reaches out to touch the cold surface of her former mentor's legacy. Spiritual energy surges at her touch, causing ethereal flowers to bloom as she regrets the silence that once stood between them. Returning to the present, Wan King leans into Baizhu's support, exhausted by the intensity of the spiritual resonance. Baizhu silences her concerns with a gentle gesture, insisting that her recovery is the only priority right now. She firmly grasps Wan King's hand, initiating a direct transfer of spiritual energy to stabilize her fading strength. Feeling the warmth of the connection, Wan King realizes that the bond they share is far deeper than she ever imagined. She observes the sorrow in Baizhu's eyes, understanding now that immortality has been a lonely burden rather than a reward. Choosing to cast aside the distractions of the past, they find a moment of peace together, focused only on their mutual survival. Wan King can feel Baizhu's spiritual energy surging through her as he works to stabilize her weakened core. They drift deep into the silent abyss while she wonders if he's searching for traces of the dark seed's corruption. A silken sash spirals around them, binding their fates together in the depths of the pool. Once she regains her strength, Baizhu pulls back to ensure she's feeling better after the intense energy transfer. Baizhu remains focused on the mission, urging her to hide the jade pendant before they regroup with Chuyen. She contemplates the terrifying realism of the visions they just witnessed, unable to find a single flaw in the illusion. Baizhu reaches out to the shimmering air, sensing that the very fabric of this reality is designed to deceive. Hearing Princess Yunning's panicked cries from the shore, Baizhu realizes the protective barrier has finally collapsed. Wan King suggests using a stealthy illusion spell so they can approach the conflict without being spotted. Nearby, a mysterious official reveals a fractured ghost gate coin, sensing that something sinister is afoot. The Prince of Chengyang brandishes a cursed doll, claiming it's the definitive proof of Yunning's treason. Yunning screams in defiance, realizing she's been framed by the very spies planted within her own palace. Watching from the safety of the lily pads, Wan King and Baizhu have successfully transformed into tiny, inconspicuous frogs. From her low vantage point, Baizhu observes that the surrounding soldiers are moving with the unnatural stiffness of puppets. She realizes the prince's coin is the matching half to the artifact they found earlier, holding the key to his control. Suddenly, Baizhu dispels her transformation and stands tall, gripping the cursed coin in her hand. The prince and the princess are left speechless by the sudden appearance of the powerful Daoist nun. Baizhu channels her own power into the artifact, intending to turn the prince's dark magic back against him. She remains composed while holding the tiny frog Wan King, delegating the protection of the princess to Chu Yan. With the prince's power neutralized, the group gathers to assess the strange condition of the puppet soldiers. Baizhu explains that the two coins were designed to drain spiritual energy to fuel a massive, unpredictable conspiracy. Yin Ning looks around frantically, asking where Wan King has gone during the chaos. Baizhu looks down at her palms with a hint of concern, realizing Wan King is currently stuck in her adorable frog form. Baizhu examines the small frog, wondering how Wan King's transformation became so unstable. They realize her loss of power caused this physical regression, making her current state difficult to reverse. Yunning and Chu Yan discuss the puppet army's source of power, noting the prince's failed coup. The Prince of Chengyang refuses to yield, lashing out in a desperate attempt to reclaim control. Baizhu reveals the protective talisman that successfully shielded the group from the prince's dark magic. The allies share a look of triumph, knowing their coordinated plan to lower the prince's guard worked perfectly. Baizhu warns the prince that his reckless use of demonic energy is already destroying his mortal body. He bluntly tells the villain that he was merely a disposable pawn for a much darker mastermind. The noble consort watches in horror as the prince begins to dissolve into a cloud of dark energy. Chu Yan plans to use imperial medicine to help the soldiers recover their shattered spirits. Baizhu assures everyone that the immediate threat is gone while focusing on the tiny mermaid frog. Feeling drained by the magical conflict, Wan King asks to be taken back to rest. Yunning promises to handle the court politics so Baizhu can focus on Wan King's recovery. Safely away from the crowds, Baizhu encourages the shy frog to step out from cover. The small creature moves cautiously, seeking comfort from her guardian's presence. When the frog nearly falls, Baizhu's quick reflexes catch her before she can be injured. He gently questions why she seems so bothered by the earlier interactions with the princess. Wan King explains her dissatisfaction, noting that others received protective charms while she did not. Baizhu tries to soothe her concerns, asking if she is still feeling neglected after the battle. He instructs her to stay still in his palm to facilitate a restoration spell. The sudden surge of magical resonance causes Wan King to instantly regain her original form. She explains that her competitive spirit toward the princess likely triggered the transformation. Moving closer to synchronize their energy, she emphasizes the unique technical bond they share. As the spell stabilizes, she rests nearby to ensure her spiritual energy remains balanced. Baizhu leans in close to Wan King, promising to provide all the specialized care she needs for her recovery. The exiled god focuses intently on the task, ensuring every aspect of the mermaid's physical well-being is addressed with technical precision. Wan King looks up with wide, shimmering eyes, curious about the sudden shift in the atmosphere as her energy begins to stabilize. Baizhu pauses, overwhelmed by a protective instinct to look after the vulnerable mermaid like a fragile creature of the sea, realizing that standard recovery methods are limited without her full aquatic environment. Baizhu considers alternative techniques to aid her scales. Baizhu carefully applies water to Wan King's skin, knowing that proper hydration is vital for a mermaid's spiritual and physical stability. The cooling sensation of the water allows the residual spiritual energy to circulate more efficiently through Wan King's system. Wan King leans into the comfort, expressing her gratitude for the dedicated support during this difficult healing process. Meanwhile, high atop the palace roof, Chu Yan stands guard, her mystical compass glowing with celestial energy. Princess Yun Ning approaches the Taoist master, offering her sincere praise for the accuracy of her recent divinations. The princess expresses her deep gratitude, confirming that the Xianing Pearl will be handed over as a reward for saving the imperial soldiers. When asked about her lineage, Chu Yan humbly explains that her master was a rogue immortal, who once provided her with a sanctuary for cultivation. The conversation turns lighthearted as Chu Yan reminisces about her master's playful nature and simple magical parlor tricks. However, the atmosphere quickly shifts back to serious business as Yun Ning senses a heavy thought weighing on the master's mind. Chu Yan delivers a grim warning, suggesting the prince was merely a pawn in a larger, more dangerous, gear-rearing trap set by a hidden mastermind. The Taoist master hints at a deeper mystery, connecting the princess's very soul to the Xianing Pearl obtained by the emperor decades ago. This revelation points toward a catastrophic event from the past, specifically the Great Flood that once ravaged the mortal realm and changed everything. Wan King stirs from her slumber as the morning light fills the room. She offers a groggy greeting to her companion while still half asleep. Wan King realizes she failed to return the vital spiritual energy used to stabilize her human form. She tries to covertly channel her essence back into Baizhu to aid the deity's recovery. Baizhu instantly detects the clumsy transfer and calls out the secret attempt to return the power. Baizhu notes that the girl hasn't mastered her newly acquired, unrefined magical abilities yet. Recalling the tragic end of past spirits, Wan King fears a similar fate for her protector. She pledges to focus on her own cultivation to prevent any further strain on Baizhu's health. A sudden intrusion breaks their quiet moment, forcing an abrupt end to their morning talk. Later, the group reconvenes to address the pressing and dangerous matters of the imperial court. After a quick change of attire, the pair prepares to hear the latest updates on the palace situation. Yunning shares the grim news that the noble consort has suddenly taken her own life. Baizhu ponders if this suicide was actually a calculated way to eliminate a failing pawn. The team concludes that a single mastermind is manipulating everyone to destabilize the entire city. Chu Yen points to ancient records of a flood as the true root of the current chaos. The Taoist explains that shifting stars finally reveal the hidden, long-buried threads of fate. She suggests the emperor's illness is actually karmic retribution for neglecting his people during the disaster. A glimpse into the past shows the emperor's fateful inaction during the peak of the cataclysm. Yunning is stunned to learn her own childhood role in her father's tragic past mistakes. Chu Yan reveals that the price paid for Yunning's restored sanity was a catastrophic flood that ravaged the mortal realm. The Jianing pearl pulses with a haunting glow, a relic born from a desperate pact between the emperor and the aquatic tribes. Waves of resentment crash against the coastal mountains, fueling a mastermind who now seeks a bloody revenge within the imperial city. Princess Yunning bows her head in heavy silence, realizing her father's guilt was actually the weight of an unpaid karmic debt. With a gaze full of resolve, the princess vows to spend her life attending for the suffering caused by her very existence. Entrusting the pearl to Baizhu and Wan King, Yunning begs them to find the source of this disaster and bring peace to her people. Chu Yan offers a formal salute, warning that the waning Ziwei star signals a grim fate for the emperor that cannot be avoided. High above, the celestial alignment shifts toward the princess, suggesting that the crown and its many dangers may soon be hers. Baizhu and Wan King wander through the moonlit gardens, questioning if Yunning will become the mastermind's next target. Wan King watches the shadows dance, fearing that the emperor's final days are rapidly approaching. Her heart aches for her friend, wondering how a father could ever allow such a tragedy to submerge the land. Baizhu gazes down at her, explaining that even the high gods seem to turn a blind eye to the aquatic tribe's actions. He laments that in the face of destiny, even gods can feel as insignificant as dust against the incoming tide. Beneath the silver leaves, he reflects on the impossible struggle of remaining true to one's own heart in a world of dilemmas. Baizhu's eyes shimmer with an ancient sorrow as he considers the misunderstandings that a deity must endure. Wan King pauses, a sudden spark of realization crossing her face as she finally grasps the purpose of the moon cultivators. She looks up at Baizhu, admitting she once thought the moon's waxing and waning was just a natural change. They sit by the tranquil pond where the moon's reflection ripples, a stark contrast to the illusions of the mortal realm. She explains that moon cultivators craft these phases as a test, forcing mortals to face the pain of desires they cannot reach. A vision of the past appears, showing a cultivator who descended to the mortal world, unable to bear the harsh heavenly laws. Wan King notes that Baizhu, much like that cultivator, once yearned for the world below despite the demands of the heavens. Baizhu listens intently, his expression softening as he hears her profound insight into his own soul. Wan King stares ahead with luminous eyes, acknowledging that everyone, from emperors to commoners, is trapped in a cage. She shrugs with a playful smile, deciding that the weight of the world doesn't matter as long as she is with him. Leaning into his warmth, she declares that the invisible rules of the heavens have no power over her peace. Baizhu holds her close, marveling at how her spirited nature remains unchanged through the ages. He lets out a soft chuckle, finding beauty in her fearless ignorance of the immense power of heaven and earth. His gaze intensifies with a silent promise that no decree from above will ever force him to let her go. Enveloped by the evening blossoms, they share a moment of pure defiance against a fate that demands they be content. Baizhu gazes into Wan King's eyes, whispering that their fates are inextricably linked and he will never let her face the heavenly Tao alone. He promises to share his spiritual energy, ensuring they will always find a sanctuary in this vast world together. As the two share a quiet, moonlit moment, a small figure watches them from the shadows. Chu Yan awkwardly clears her throat, trying to offer them some semblance of privacy while interrupting the moment. Startled by the sudden visitor, the pair quickly pulls back as they realize they are no longer alone. Wan King holds her storybook close, innocently explaining that life is too short to waste a single second of happiness. Seeing them together, Chuyen admits she's relieved to see Baiju's mind finally at peace and free from the threat of key deviation. However, the mood shifts as Chuyen consults her celestial tools, warning of the impending chaos if the mortal emperor falls. They realize the luminous pearl holds deep secrets tied to the mountain god and the ancient moon cultivators. Baizhu remains focused, knowing the investigation into this powerful relic must begin without any further delay. Later, she explains to Wan King that this pearl is a rare relic capable of reflecting the complex karmic ties of the mortal realm. Baizhu takes her hand firmly, preparing her to psychically enter the pearl's inner domain together. Despite their intense focus, the artifact remains unresponsive to their initial attempts at magical resonance. Wan King decides to try a specialized illusion spell, her eyes glowing with newfound determination as she channels her energy. The ritual is suddenly interrupted when a stray cat leaps out, sending the young mermaid into a total panic. In her fright, Wan King instinctively summons a sharp burst of water to keep the feline at bay. Disaster strikes as the luminous pearl slips from her grasp and shatters into pieces against the floor. Baizhu observes the fragments carefully, noting that the crack was likely caused by the spell's reaction rather than the fall itself. Wan King is momentarily distracted by her success, thrilled that she finally managed to master her water-controlling abilities. Baizhu watches her with a skeptical expression, doubting the cat played any real role in her sudden power spike. The feline culprit simply looks on, seemingly unfazed by the magical chaos it just caused. Reality suddenly sets in for Wan King as she realizes the precious artifact is now completely in pieces. But amidst the ruins, a glowing silhouette emerges, revealing a vision of a young Baizhu hidden deep within the pearl's memory. Baizhu pulls Wan King close, his mind racing as he tries to process the impossible vision he just witnessed. He recalls Lady Chuyen's cryptic explanation that the Zaning pearl can pull back the veil on karmic ties and memories long buried. Wan King looks up with wide, curious eyes, wondering if this vision is the key to finally uncovering the truth of Baiju's past. The heavy atmosphere is suddenly shattered when a stray cat lunges through the air, sending the pair into a panicked scramble. Chaos ensues as the kitten lands right on Wan King's head, sending clouds of fur flying and triggering her allergies. Desperate to scare the feline off, Wan King tries to conjure a quick illusion, but a massive sneeze sends her magic spiraling out of control. Suddenly, the world shifts, and Baizhu holds her steady as they find themselves pulled deep into the luminous depths of the pearl. They tumble through a weightless blue void, realizing her unstable magic has accidentally dragged them both into the pearl's inner realm. Finding the illusion of a younger Baizhu nearby, Wan King leans in, mesmerized by how incredibly lifelike the vision appears. Baizhu senses a sudden, dangerous shift in the atmosphere and reaches out to pull her back from the projection. Without warning, the young Baiju's eyes snap open, burning with a cold and terrifying intensity. A violent surge of white light erupts from the figure, manifesting as heavy golden chains that lash out at the intruders. Baizhu stares in disbelief as the searing golden energy begins to coil tightly around his own body. A massive, golden draconic spirit swirls through the air, its voice booming with a divine wrath that demands the destruction of all demons. A single, glowing eye fixes its gaze upon them, radiating a soul-crushing power that feels like the judgment of the gods. Trapped within the tightening chains, Baizhu and Wan King can only watch in horror as this ancient power prepares to strike. The golden chains tighten their grip, anchoring the divine presence within this fractured reality. Baizhu remains motionless, her eyes sealed as the radiant energy of the Zaning pearl pulses around her. A memory flickers to life, showing a moment of respite where allies discuss the secret of the heavenly eyes. In the vision, a younger Baizhu touches her face, acknowledging the celestial origin of her sight. Her companion sighs, weighing the heavy burden and risk that comes with such divine power. Wan King looks on with unwavering faith, seeing Baizhu not as a risk, but as a light destined to pierce the heavens. Reality snaps back as the phantom's eyes glow with a chilling, otherworldly blue. Baiju's own gaze sharpens, her crimson eyes narrowing as she realizes the phantom is striking with lethal intent. The manifestation of her younger self unleashes a torrent of golden chains, threatening to tear the realm apart. Panicked, Wan King cries out, desperately trying to keep Baizhu focused on the fact that this enemy is merely a phantom. Resisting the mental assault, Baizhu prepares a talisman to shatter the spectral bindings. The phantom looks on with detached cruelty, dismissing her targets as nothing more than wretched demons. Recognizing the danger, Wan King channels her aquatic energy, her eyes reflecting a newfound resolve to protect her companion. She attempts an advanced moon cultivator spell, hoping to disrupt the phantom's connection to the pearl. The chaotic energy subsides for a moment as the two find a brief, safe footing amidst the shimmering void. Baizhu leans close, warning Wan King that the phantom will surely exploit any flicker of vulnerability. Distant and confused, the draconic spirit wonders how a mere mermaid could possibly interfere with its divine authority. A sudden realization washes over the phantom, as if recognizing a familiar soul from a distant past. With a blinding flash of light, the phantom lunges forward, moving faster than the eye can track. Baizhu immediately steps into a defensive stance, raising her talisman to intercept the coming blow. To her horror, the phantom's energy surge passes right through her defenses, completely ignoring her presence. Baiju's eyes widen in shock as she realizes she wasn't the target of the attack. In an instant, Wan King is isolated, trapped within a shimmering orb of spiritual energy. The phantom's gaze locks onto her, claiming she has been watching Wan King from the heavens for eons. The apparition begins to physically age and transform, leaning into Wan King's personal space with an intense, haunting focus. She reaches out a slender hand, admitting that she almost failed to recognize Wan King's current form. Before Wan King can react, the phantom pulls her into a tight, desperate embrace. Surrounded by heavy chains and cold light, the spirit whispers that they are finally alone together. Wan King gasps as she finds her body paralyzed, a cold hand pressing firmly against her chest. The phantom marvels at the warmth radiating from Wan King, studying her like a curious specimen. The spirit's face twists into a terrifying mask of malice as she declares her intent to rip the heart from Wan King's chest. Baiju's hand surges with a sudden burst of golden spiritual energy as she prepares to intervene. She lunges forward with a fierce command, determined to break the phantom's hold on her companion. The divine spirit remains unmoved, watching Baiju's desperate approach with an eerie, knowing calm. Wan King looks on in a daze, worriedly asking if Baiju can sustain such a massive expenditure of energy. The phantom notes that it's no surprise Baiju could shatter the spell, given their shared divine origin. Standing within the swirling void, the spirit points out that Baiju clearly harbors the same intense desire for the mermaid. The phantom moves closer, challenging Baiju to deny the truth of her own hidden motivations. Baiju glares back with dual-colored eyes, refusing to back down from the spirit's psychological games. The spirit leans in toward Wan King, convinced the mermaid can already feel the weight of these ancient intentions. Baiju's power flares to life, her gaze turning sharp as she warns the intruder to stay away. With a dismissive smile, the phantom claims that no amount of force can truly damage her ethereal form. She whispers into the darkness, noting that Baiju's heretical path has rendered her unable to strike at a divine fashion. Baiju stands firm, realizing the phantom's previous appearance was nothing more than a clever ruse. A close-up of the spirit's eye reveals a piercing, crystalline blue pupil that cuts through the darkness. The phantom explains that the illusion was a necessary seal to hide the true power of her heavenly eyes. Now fully revealed, the spirit's heterochromatic eyes glow with an unsettling, ancient authority. She mockingly suggests that the fools in the heavenly court would never have suspected such a deep deception. The phantom acknowledges Baiju as a fellow master of illusions, praising her for breaking the red-eye spell so easily. Wan King is left reeling as the spirit reveals that only a single sliver of a human immortal's soul remains within her. The mermaid wonders if this fragment is the very thing Baiju has spent eons searching for. The phantom smiles dangerously, declaring that even a tiny piece of that soul is a prize worth taking. She pulls Wan King close, whispering that among all the gods in the heavens, the mermaid is the only one she cannot forget. Baiju's patience finally snaps, her eyes narrowing as she prepares a final, decisive strike. A flurry of golden talismans circles Baiju as she demands the phantom release her hold immediately. In a moment of frantic mediation, Wan King tries to de-escalate the tension by urging Baiju to listen first. The mermaid humorously pushes against the phantom, insisting that the spirit keep a professional distance. The spirit watches the exchange with a look of genuine curiosity, intrigued by their bond. Returning to the gravity of the situation, the phantom questions how Baiju can possibly prove the nature of this single soul. Baiju readies her spiritual defenses, her energy swirling in anticipation of the coming conflict. The phantom turns away, pondering why her own divine sight cannot perceive the secrets Baiju claims to know. She stands alone amidst the heavy chains of the peril, a solitary figure in a vast spiritual prison. The spirit explains that her heavenly eyes see all karmic ties as simple, easily unraveled threads. She conjures a swirling vortex of energy, claiming Baiju's clouded consciousness prevents her from seeing the true heart of the matter. Deep within the reflection of the phantom's eye, the hidden memories of their shared past begin to surface. A vision of a long-lost connection appears, proving that their bond has survived through countless cycles of reincarnation. Baiju pulls Wan King back into her protective embrace, shielding her from the spirit's cold assessment. The phantom focuses on the glowing energy in her palm, admitting she has no grasp of mortal emotions. She reaches out one last time, her gaze fixed solely on the essence she intends to claim. A chilling satisfaction crosses the phantom's face as she imagines finally melting Wan King's heart and soul into her own. The phantom's eye glows with a frigid, crystalline light as she observes the chilling intensity of Baiju's gaze. From a distance, Baiju remains poised amidst a swirling vortex of frost, her presence a beacon of defiance. Suddenly, the phantom manifests directly behind Wan King, trapping her in an icy hold as Baiju watches from below in horror. The divine entity leans in close, questioning why Wan King would ever resist the inevitable merger of their souls. Baiju lunges forward, unleashing a blinding burst of spiritual energy to sever the phantom's grip on her companion. As the ice shatters into a million pieces, Baiju stares down her opponent with unwavering resolve. The phantom merely sneers, explaining that the clash of their powers only allowed her to seep deeper into their connection. High above, the heavenly eye looms over Baizhu, threatening to paralyze her under its absolute authority. Through the jagged shards of the spiritual realm, the contrast between the phantom's cold calculation and Baizhu's fiery determination is laid bare. Wan Qing's eyes well with tears as she feels her very life force being siphoned away by the phantom's touch. Despite Baizhu's desperate command to stand down, the phantom remains fixated on fulfilling her own selfish whims. The entity mocks their bond, claiming that their emotional attachments are nothing more than exploitable flaws. Refusing to be a victim, Wan Qing channels her remaining spiritual energy into her fingertips, preparing a final stand. She gazes at the phantom not with fear, but with a profound sense of pity for its hollow existence. With a decisive touch, Wan Qing rejects the phantom's identity, triggering a massive surge of power that ripples through the mountains. The sheer force of the spiritual backlash sends the phantom reeling backward into the freezing air. The phantom's form begins to fracture and dissolve as the overwhelming energy of the soul fragment takes control. As the dust settles, Baizhu's dual-colored eyes pierce through the remaining mist, searching for signs of life. Realizing the danger has passed, Baizhu's expression finally softens into one of pure relief. Wan Qing looks up, her strength spent, but her spirit finally at peace now that her protector is safe. The two plummet through the dark, icy expanse, gravity pulling them rapidly toward the churning waters below. Baizhu reaches out and pulls Wan Qing into a protective embrace, ensuring she is shielded as they descend into the safety of the dark sea. Baizhu pulls Wan Qing close, her voice filled with concern as she asks what is troubling her companion. Taking Wan Qing's hands in hers, Baizhu maintains a professional focus as she prepares to examine her spiritual state. A soft glow emanates from their joined hands as Baizhu probes the lingering spiritual energy within Wan Qing's body. Wan Qing gazes upward, explaining that her sudden surge of power was born from a desperate wish to protect her friend. Baizhu tightens her grip, realizing this mysterious strength is likely tied to the fragment of Wan Qing's soul. Standing amidst the vast emptiness, Baizhu theorizes that a powerful restriction on Wan Qing only breaks during moments of extreme crisis. Looking into Wan Qing's eyes, Baizhu wonders if the phantom they encountered is truly a remnant of her own forgotten history. She confesses her fear that the entity was actually an inner demon projected from her own past. Faded memories of her childhood resurface, highlighting how much her temperament has shifted since her time with the mountain god. Baizhu's expression darkens with the heavy realization that she might be the one destined to fade away. Refusing to accept such a fate, Wan Qing pulls Baizhu into a firm, protective embrace. With a determined smile, Wan Qing vows to leave the past behind and stay by Baizhu's side no matter what. Baizhu stares back, finally understanding the depth of the loyalty and bond they share. In a moment of absolute trust, Baizhu leans in close to seal their silent pact of mutual protection. Surveying the endless white void around them, the duo realizes the difficulty of navigating such a boundless space. Baizhu admits that despite her mastery of magic, finding an exit in this vacuum won't be easy. She proposes a clever solution, utilizing the moon cultivator's illusion magic to manifest a path forward. Suddenly, the pair transforms into two adorable green frogs, ready to navigate the spiritual currents. The tiny frogs begin hopping across conjured lily pads, scouting for a way out of the realm. They continue their rhythmic journey across the illusionary water, pushing through the fatigue. One frog nearly topples over as the lead explorer comes to a sudden, jarring halt. A shimmering blue rift appears before them, marking the boundary of the illusion. The two frogs brace themselves, leaping together toward the glowing exit portal. They crash land onto a solid wooden floor, dazed from the sudden transition back to reality. As they try to recover, a massive shadow falls over them, accompanied by an ominous meow. The frogs look up in pure terror as they realize they've landed right in the sights of a giant cat. The massive feline lets out a thunderous hiss, its claws bared and ready to strike the two intruders. Baizhu quickly acts, weaving threads of golden energy to harmlessly restrain the aggressive animal. With a gentle but firm motion, the exiled god lifts the bound cat to move it out of their path. Reverting to their true forms, the duo watches as the cat is levitated safely toward the courtyard exit. Princess Yuanning and Chu Yan are baffled to find the palace pet being handled with such mystical precision. The princess explains that this cat is a seasoned hunter, usually tasked with keeping the palace grounds clear of pests. However, Yuanning's expression turns curious as she realizes there should be no reason for the cat to be on high alert in this newly built garden. Caught off guard by the sudden appearance of their allies, Baizhu and Wan Qing maintain a protective stance together. The two remain in a close, supportive embrace as their focus shifts toward the unexpected arrival of the princess. Yuanning gestures with a look of wonder, asking for an explanation regarding the incredible shape-shifting art she just witnessed. Chu Yan attempts to bridge the awkwardness, framing the transformation incident as a specialized technical hobby between the pair. Realizing the gravity of the situation, the princess feels she may have intruded upon a confidential moment between the two. She quickly pivots the conversation, delivering the urgent news that the Taoist priest is scheduled to return. The group discusses the potential for the priest's ancient knowledge to finally stabilize the emperor's failing health. Yunning shares her heartfelt desire to secure more precious time with her father before his strength fades completely. Baizhu listens intently as the princess confirms that a messenger pigeon has already signaled the priest's arrival for tomorrow morning. Chu Yan offers a respectful bow, signaling the end of the meeting as the princess prepares to retire for the evening. Once alone, Baizhu gazes into her cup, reflecting on the chilling obsession she encountered within the luminous pearl. Chu Yan waits in silence, sensing the weight of dark revelation Baizhu is about to share. Baizhu reveals that the vision was a cold, emotionless shadow of her past self, sealed away for centuries. This phantom version of her soul was a being of pure logic, completely isolated from human warmth or understanding. Wan King listens with a heavy heart, trying to reconcile this heartless origin with the person standing before her. Baizhu admits that this ancient spirit was capable of foreseeing disasters, yet lacked the empathy to care about the consequences. Wan King refuses to accept this, grasping Baizhu's arm and insisting that her life has always had a deeper purpose. She beams with confidence, suggesting that Baizhu's journey to the mortal realm was a deliberate choice to seek out her true identity. With a look of pure devotion, Wan King concludes that everything led to this moment, so they could finally find one another. Baizhu reflects on the lingering shadows of her celestial past. Chu Yan addresses the group regarding their non-mortal spiritual origins. Baizhu questions if her ancient essence contributed to historical disasters. Chu Yan utilizes a spiritual artifact to analyze Baizhu's transformation. The team debates why certain souls remain hidden from divine tracking. Baizhu observes Wan King's carefree demeanor amidst the rising tension. A purposeful step marks the transition to their evening hygiene routine. Wan King notices Baizhu approaching for the scheduled bath. Baizhu prepares to assist with the necessary washing. The two begin the cleaning process behind a folding screen. Baizhu maintains a professional focus while scrubbing. Wan King finds the back scrubbing sensation slightly ticklish. Baizhu remains focused on the technical task of grooming. Wan King describes her former existence as a deep-sea creature. A memory surfaces of Wan King first spotting Baizhu underwater. Baizhu offers a steadying hand during the emotional recollection. Baizhu processes the revelation of their destined encounter. Wan King shares her long-held desire to reach the shore. The pair shares a quiet moment of mutual understanding. Baizhu realizes that verbal explanations are no longer necessary. A sudden gesture interrupts the calm of the water. A cold, calculating look suggests the phantom's influence has returned. The phantom influence gazes coldly, calculating the weight of possessing a soul that the heavens themselves fear. Wan King's eyes well with tears as she realizes the spiritual energy Baizhu left within her is being drained away. She focuses her remaining strength on a single desperate hope, using that very power to wake the true Baizhu from this nightmare. Suddenly, a radiant light pierces through the water as a forgotten jade pendant begins to pulse with ancient energy. Wan King reaches out and firmly grasps the artifact, feeling its immense spiritual resonance surge through her fingers. With renewed hope, she calls out to her companion, her expression brightening as the tide of the battle finally shifts. An eye snaps open with sharp clarity, signaling the exact moment the real Baizhu breaks through the dark illusion. The true Baizhu stands firm, revealing she anticipated this scheme and has successfully sealed the tiny phantom within the glowing jade. Overcome with relief, Wan King lunges forward to embrace her friend, grateful that the cold influence has been banished. Baizhu holds the pendant aloft, explaining how the vessel is perfectly designed to contain and circulate wayward spiritual energy. Wan King takes a deep breath and relaxes, finally allowing the lingering tension of the spiritual attack to fade away. Baizhu leans over to monitor her friend's condition, ensuring that the spiritual drain hasn't left any lasting damage. She carefully places the jade pendant onto the ledge, its job of protecting them for the night complete. With a look of calm determination, Baizhu vows to ensure Wan King feels completely restored before the morning comes. Baizhu and Chu Yan sit in the quiet hall, gravely discussing the reappearance of the phantom and how it continues to affect Baizhu's stability. While Wan King focuses on her snack, Baizhu explains that seeking the luminous pearl brought about unexpected risks they hadn't prepared for. Taking a slow sip of tea, Baizhu reflects on the unsettling shadows he witnessed within the heavens during his journey to the Eastern Sea. Chu Yan leans over the table, baffled that a simple jade pendant could actually contain a power as turbulent as a mountain god's essence. Examining the artifact closely, Chu Yan is struck by how the tiny spirit trapped inside looks exactly like a miniature version of Baizhu. Chu Yan lifts the pendant to the light, jokingly wondering if such a deceptive face could be used to play tricks on the unsuspecting. Suddenly, the tiny entity within the jade begins to react aggressively, appearing to shout or curse at the inquisitive Taoist. With a swift motion, Baizhu uses his power to magically obscure the pendant, ensuring the spirit can no longer see or interact with them. Baizhu hands the glowing seal to Chu Yan, instructing her to keep it safely stored until they can determine if anyone else was pulling the strings. Turning his attention inward, Baizhu acknowledges that he must now focus on stabilizing his own fluctuating energy levels. Wan King beams with pure joy, confidently declaring that she is finally ready to take on the role of Baizhu's protector. Baizhu offers a rare, genuine smile, touched by the idea that his little fish, is determined to look after him. Later, as they begin their recovery session, Baizhu supports One King's weight to check if the spiritual drain has left her feeling fatigued. The two enter a deep state of cultivation, carefully synchronizing their breath as they circulate spiritual energy between one another. One King embraces Baizhu with a bright smile, expressing her heartfelt gratitude for the immense effort he has put into her healing. They lock fingers tightly, maintaining the physical contact necessary to ensure the essence flows smoothly through their meridians. Baizhu leans in close to monitor the subtle shifts in her spiritual aura, ensuring the technical exchange remains perfectly balanced. Caught off guard by a playful remark, One King's face flushes as she frantically tries to correct her slip of the tongue. Baizhu holds her steady, refusing to let the spiritual connection break despite her sudden state of fluster. He watches her reaction with an intense focus, checking for any signs that the surging energy is becoming too much for her to handle. Overwhelmed by the internal heat generated by the circulation, Wan covers her face in a fit of adorable shyness. Baizhu places a calming hand on her, sternly but gently telling her to stay still so the final stage of the healing can finish. Exhausted but stable, the two collapse onto the bed together, catching their breath after the successful completion of the grueling energy transfer. Wan King is caught in the grip of an intense spiritual vision, her breath hitching as she questions the overwhelming sensations of this shared mental bond. Baizhu leans forward within the dreamscape, signaling that the next stage of their soul-sensing trial is about to begin. Her eyes glow with a piercing light as she observes every ripple in Wan King's spiritual energy with clinical precision. The vision takes a dark turn as a phantom voice threatens to consume Wan King's essence entirely. Wan King snaps awake with a start, her heart racing as she realizes the terrifying nightmare has finally ended. Seeking comfort, she clings to Baizhu and tearfully admits she never wants to be separated from her protector again. She wraps her arms around the exiled god in a desperate embrace, vowing to keep their bond unbreakable despite the shadows haunting them. After calming down, Wan King's attention is caught by the elegant new robes Baizhu has thoughtfully prepared for their journey. The two decide to head to a local temple fair, though Baizhu can't help but feel a bit possessive when hearing about the palace servants Wan King has been chatting with. Baizhu gently lifts Wan King's chin, the atmosphere growing quiet and focused as they prepare to head out. With a playful glint in her eyes, Baizhu uses an affectionate nickname that catches the little fish girl completely off guard. Wan King stands frozen, her face turning a bright shade of crimson from the unexpected teasing. She tries to hide her embarrassment, feeling a sudden surge of internal heat from the social pressure of the situation. Just then, Chu Yen enters the room and immediately questions if Wan King is suffering from some kind of fever due to her red complexion. Baizhu maintains a composed, professional demeanor while listening to the urgent report about the palace's current affairs. Feeling shy, Wan King retreats under the covers, grumbling about how Baizhu loves to push her buttons at the worst times. Chu Yen presents a special floral tea from Princess Yunning, specifically intended to soothe any spiritual agitation Wan King might be feeling. Transitioning to serious matters, Baizhu explains that the political unrest and the king's illness are all parts of a larger, hidden conspiracy involving a mysterious mastermind. She discusses the need to carefully guide the princess through the upcoming succession crisis, without letting her succumb to panic. Sensing the thick atmosphere of the duo's private banter, Chu Yen makes a hasty and awkward exit to attend to other matters. Wan King peers curiously at the tea, watching the delicate petals swirl in the water as she contemplates the land's customs. She picks up a white blossom, wondering if consuming the flower directly would be more effective for clearing her internal heat. Baizhu encourages the experiment, though she hides a secret smile as Wan King realizes the petal is actually incredibly bitter. A sudden flash of a past life reveals a younger Baizhu being warned not to pick the spiritually charged flowers on the mountain by a familiar figure. Returning to the present, Baizhu looks at her companion with a gaze filled with centuries of unspoken history and hidden affection. Wan King's eyes sparkle with joy when she is offered a special plum blossom makeup style to complete her look for the fair. Dressed in her finest silks, Wan King twirls happily as they finally arrive at the bustling, lantern-lit capital city. Baizhu looks on with genuine warmth, affirming that Wan King is the most radiant sight among the festive crowds. Their peaceful walk is interrupted when they stumble upon a group of refugees fleeing from disaster-stricken zones in the flood regions. Wan King gasps in horror as she overhears a cruel rumor about a rare child being targeted to be used as medicine ingredients. On the ground sits a shivering, white-haired girl, looking up with hollow eyes that reflect a tragic and dangerous fate. Wan King recognizes the grim reality that a simple straw marker signals a human life is for sale. Her heart sinks as she wonders how such a young child could be discarded like property in the middle of the capital. Amidst the crowded street, a desperate mother clings to her children, pleading for any kind soul to give them a chance at survival. Baizhu narrows her eyes, sensing a strange and powerful aura radiating from the silent, white-haired girl among the refugees. Distraught by the scene, Wan King turns to her companion, desperate to find some way to intervene and help the suffering family. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifts as imperial guards storm the market, violently forcing the lowly commoners, aside to clear a path for the nobility. One king watches in horror, realizing that the princess's charity is being twisted into cruelty by these corrupt subordinates. Without hesitation, a guard shoves the defenseless, white-haired child, sending her tumbling onto the hard ground. The girl looks up, her face marred by fresh scrapes, yet her gaze remains eerily calm despite the pain. A heavy boot hovers menacingly over the child's small hand, ready to crush it into the stone. One king rushes forward to shield the girl, standing her ground and calling out the guards for their excessive force. Before the soldiers can retaliate, Beiju moves with blinding speed, neutralizing the threat and protecting One King with a single, decisive motion. With cold, piercing eyes, Beiju warns the surrounding men that continuing their assault will lead to their certain demise. A voice cuts through the tension from the shadows, causing the guards to freeze in their tracks. Chu Yan steps into the light, his calm demeanor masking the immense political influence he wields as the princess's advisor. Realizing they cannot afford to offend someone so close to the throne, the guards quickly scramble to retreat and report back. The Taoist priest immediately turns his attention to the sick mother, offering his technical expertise to examine her condition. Beiju watches him closely, noting his detached observation that some matters are simply beyond human capability. One King studies Chu Yan's face, sensing that his knowledge of the palace's failing destiny goes far deeper than he admits. She gently asks the traumatized child if she is willing to seek sanctuary at the Taoist temple with Chu Yan. A heavy silence falls as One King reflects on the impossibility of saving every soul they encounter in this crisis. Beiju remains focused, her gaze unwavering as she evaluates One King's internal conflict. Unexpectedly, the little girl reaches out, clutching One King's sleeve in a silent, desperate plea. Looking into those wide, innocent eyes, One King finds it impossible to resist the child's need for protection. Beiju yields to the request, agreeing that the temple is the safest place for the refugees to recover for now. Chu Yan accepts the responsibility, his expression unreadable as he prepares to lead the group away. He places a steadying hand on the girl's head, promising to seek an audience at the palace once they are settled. As they move on, Beiju reveals the dark truth that the girl's unique hair marks her as a target for those seeking rare medicine ingredients. Determined to stop this cycle of suffering, One King suggests they gather more intelligence to present to Princess Yinning. Beiju pauses, her intense focus shifting entirely onto One King's unwavering resolve. She steps closer, offering a supportive and protective embrace to steady One King's nerves in the middle of the street. Startled by the sudden closeness, One King looks up, finding a rare moment of silent understanding between them amidst the chaos of the capital. The white-haired girl gazes up with wide, uncertain eyes as One King questions why she chose to follow them instead of staying with the priest. One King leans in with a gentle smile, curious if the child took the risk of running away on her own. Looking at the tiny figure, One King is struck by the realization of just how young and vulnerable this girl truly is. Noticing the girl's constant clinging, One King offers a comforting gesture, wondering why she feels so attached to her. Beiju watches the interaction with a sharp, calculating gaze, his mind already working through the implications of this bond. He suddenly takes One King's hand, insisting they change course to ensure the girl's safety from those seeking her as a medicine ingredient. Trusting his judgment completely, One King looks up at him and resolves to follow his lead. Upon arriving at the crowded Taoist temple, Beiju confirms the location amidst a sea of worshippers seeking fortune. One King's eyes light up with excitement as she spots the divination sticks, eager to try a ritual she's only ever read about in stories. Beiju steps behind her, guiding her hands on the bamboo cylinder while instructing her to focus her spiritual energy for a sincere response. Under the serene canopy of a blossoming tree, One King prepares to draw her first, fate-determining stick. She shakes the container with all her might, yet the wooden sticks refuse to budge, as if held by an invisible force. The white-haired girl watches in silence, sensing a faint, mysterious resonance emanating from the wooden cylinder. Drawn to the spiritual aura, the girl raises her hand toward the object as if responding to a call only she can hear. Amidst a flurry of pink petals, the girl finally breaks her silence, softly uttering the word sister. With the mysterious child now speaking, the group makes a quiet exit from the temple grounds to discuss this development in private. Chu Yan analyzes the situation, suspecting that One King's accidental leak of spiritual energy may have unlocked the girl's voice. Beiju remains cautious, keeping a close watch on the child as they piece together the source of this sudden empowerment. One King tries to explain the frantic moment she felt when the divination stick seemed stuck in place, despite her efforts. Beiju questions if she noticed any internal shifts during their intensive spiritual blending session the night before. Chu Yan inspects the stick closely, identifying a complex soul-guiding rune that matches the power used to swap vessels in the past. Beiju warns that this spiritual awakening is no coincidence. It's a sign that the mastermind is finally stepping out of the shadows. One King processes the warning, realizing that their brief moment of peace was merely the calm before a massive storm. Beiju recalls the mysterious soul that once briefly surfaced within One King. He remembers the spiritual surge surge that vanished instantly during his previous search. Wan King reacts with shock at the revelation of a soul hidden inside her. Baishu's gaze narrows as he suspects the mastermind's target is actually Wan King's power. He questions if their entire journey was a trap set to harvest her unique soul. Chu Yen warns that Wan King's resonance will inevitably attract dangerous heretical demons. Baishu comforts his companion, viewing her unpredictable power as a rare opportunity. Chu Yen leads the young refugee away to ensure the upcoming ritual remains undisturbed. The group arrives at the Imperial Spring to utilize its dense spiritual energy for circulation. Baishu commands Wan King to relax so he can begin the deep soul probe. Wan King finds Baishu's spiritual flow unusually difficult to track and stabilize. The intensity of the spiritual connection causes her to momentarily lose her focus. She fights to maintain professional discipline, pushing aside any distracting thoughts. A sudden sensation of drowning overcomes her as the soul search intensifies. Deep within her subconscious, a glowing, ethereal silhouette begins to take form. Wan King gazes in wonder at the mysterious blue vision appearing before her. In the physical world, she struggles to endure the massive influx of energy. Elsewhere, Chu Yen observes the silent girl, searching for any hidden spiritual clues. The Daoist smiles, sensing a profound connection between the child and their destiny. The girl remains motionless, watching her surroundings with an eerie, knowing gaze. Chu Yen summons a star map to test the child's celestial understanding. The mysterious girl reaches out, her small hand glowing as she touches the map. Chu Yen freezes in shock as the child intentionally erases the pivotal Ziwei star. Crows descend as a messenger arrives with an urgent summons from the princess. Wan King's eyes flutter open as she returns to consciousness. A vibrant green mark glows on her forehead, matching her piercing blue gaze. She calls out to her companion with a soft whisper. Baishu gently cradles her face, recognizing the long-lost floral sigil. Wan King notes her newfound abilities, pleased that her struggle bore fruit. The weight of their shared history brings a sudden, heavy silence. Baishu's expression softens into one of profound concern. Wan King admits her deep longing despite their constant proximity. The two remain locked in a quiet moment amidst the shimmering waters. A sudden shout shatters the peace, forcing Baishu to quickly shield Wan King. Chu Yen bursts onto the scene with a frantic report regarding the emperor. The gravity of the message leaves Wan King visibly stunned. Overwhelmed by the news and her awakening, Wan King collapses. Chu Yen demands an explanation for the sudden turn of events. The Taoist arrives with the mysterious refugee girl in tow. Baishu observes the unnatural snowfall, signaling a premature shift in celestial power. Baishu interrogates the young refugee girl to uncover her true origins. The child recounts the terrifying destruction of her mountain home. Within the palace, the princess and Chu Yen assess the mounting disasters. Princess Yun Ning wonders if her leadership is the cause of this chaos. She looks toward the horizon, troubled by the empire's uncertain future. Princess Yun Ning stares down in despair as the crushing weight of the crumbling empire rests solely on her shoulders. Beside the crimson coffin, Chu Yen watches a mysterious golden talisman flare with dark, malevolent energy. Suddenly, black mist coalesces into a terrifying spectral image of the late emperor rising from his final resting place. Yun Ning gasps in absolute disbelief, tears welling in her eyes as she calls out to the father she thought was gone forever. The ghost's eyes burn with cold fury, condemning his daughter for her perceived weakness and indecision during this crisis. Sensing a foul presence, Chu Yen realizes this isn't just a vision, it's a genuine, lingering soul wisp being manipulated. She brandishes a sealing charm, certain that a dark conspiracy has interfered with the emperor's final moments. The spirit looms large, his voice dripping with venom as he declares Yun to be an absolute disappointment to the crown. Overwhelmed by the sudden, crushing guilt, the princess collapses to her knees in the center of the hall. Yun Ning reaches out through her tears, her very soul being twisted by the dark obsession manifesting before her. Chu Yan remains vigilant, recognizing that the mastermind is using the emperor's image to break the princess's will. Suddenly, Yun Ning snaps, her eyes glowing with a dangerous light as she blames the officials for her father's suffering. It's clear to Chu Yen that the trap has been sprung, and the princess is losing herself to this unnatural grief. With no time to waste, the Taoist gathers her spiritual power into a focused, brilliant azure orb. She strikes with surgical precision, pressing a pulse of energy directly into Yun Ning's forehead to sever the connection. The princess goes limp instantly, falling into Chu Yan's protective embrace as the madness finally fades. As the spectral emperor vanishes into the shadows, Chu Yen carries the unconscious royal towards safety. A burnt soul-guiding rune flutters through the air, the smoking evidence of the sabotage that nearly cost a life. Holding Yun Ning close, Chu Yen stares at the cursed paper, determined to find the one responsible for this chaos. Elsewhere, Baishu interrogates the young refugee, pressing for the truth about the disaster that leveled her home. The revelation strikes like a lightning bolt. The water the girl describes isn't from a flood on land, but the salt-heavy depths of the sea. The small girl huddles at the table, her gaze distant as she remembers the terrifying roar of the ocean. She reaches down to the floor, tracing the outline of a mysterious stone tablet in the dust to explain her past. Baishu gently holds the girl, realizing her origins are tied to the very same artifact that holds her own power. The connection is undeniable. The girl and the stone tablet share a singular, ancient essence that resonates with Baishu. The child manifests a shimmering sphere of light, proving she possesses a deep, spiritual link to those around her. She offers the glowing energy to Baishu, desperately wanting to help sister. Wan King wake up from her collapse. Baiju watches in silence as the girl selflessly transfers the power she gathered back to the sleeping vessel. The influx of energy works perfectly, and Wan King's eyes flutter open as she slowly returns to consciousness. Wan King sits up from her bed, feeling a strange, revitalizing warmth coursing through her body. Baiju looks on with a soft expression, relieved to see her friend finally awake and alert. Wan King struggles to find her footing, supported on both sides by her two loyal companions. She blinks in confusion, noticing that the girl and Baiju are moving in such perfect sync they could be seeing double. Pulling the little girl into a hug, Wan King jokingly asks if the stoic Baiju has been bullying her. The girl frantically gestures with her hands, trying to explain the situation through silent signs and motions. Baiju explains that the girl was so worried she gave back every drop of the energy she'd accidentally taken. Wan King gently takes the girl's hand, touched by the realization that she has found someone truly precious to protect. Chu Yan deduces that a soul-guiding rune was planted on the emperor's coffin, pointing to an inside job. She remains vigilant, recalling the protective talisman she previously provided to the princess. The gravity of the situation settles in as Chu Yan warns that this mysterious foe is likely targeting Wan King as well. Startled by the revelation, Wan King wonders why she would be a target in this grand scheme. She questions why Ning was brought here instead of being placed in her own quarters. Chu Yan's gaze softens as she recalls her own past experiences with protective wards. A memory surfaces of a younger Chu Yan, seeking comfort from her master during a dark night. Her master had assured her that spiritual beads would always act as a beacon to find her. Shaking off the nostalgia, a small smile plays on Chu Yan's lips. She gently tends to the unconscious princess, deciding it's best to keep her close for monitoring. Without warning, Yun Ning's eyes fly open, burning with an unnatural crimson fury. The possessed princess lunges forward, her voice a distorted rasp of royal rage as she strikes at Chu Yan. Baiju acts instantly, realizing they must bind the girl's soul before the demonic corruption takes permanent hold. Yun Ning lets out a muffled cry as the intense purification process begins to purge the darkness. The silent refugee girl watches the ritual with an unsettlingly profound intensity. Her wide eyes reflect the swirling chaos of the spiritual energies clashing before her. The dark threads of the soul-guiding rune cling stubbornly to the princess's essence. Chu Yan and Baiju combine their spiritual might to forcibly extract the lingering corruption. Bright flashes of power illuminate the room as the two experts fight to stabilize the girl's fractured mind. Slowly, the spectral distortion fades, leaving the princess's physical form exhausted on the table. A crucial spiritual link snaps, marking the end of the immediate demonic influence. Noticing the girl's reaction, Wan King asks if she perceived something hidden in the chaos. The girl parts her lips to reply, but no words can escape her strained throat. Seeing her struggle, Wan King realizes the girl is depleted and offers to share her own spiritual energy. The mysterious girl refuses, her thoughts lingering on the fragile thread of destiny she witnessed. Finding the girl's stoic nature endearing, Wan King gently pats her head with a smile. Chu Yan exhales in relief, confirming that while the soul is suppressed, the princess needs significant rest. Baiju sweeps Wan King into his arms, prioritizing her recovery after the taxing ordeal. Chu Yan offers a wary but determined look, choosing to stay and guard Yun Ning's bedside. Watching them depart, the white-haired girl senses that the wheels of fate have already turned too far. The princess remains in a deep slumber, her destiny now clouded by the encroaching shadows. Petals drift silently onto the dark surface of a pond, signaling a momentary calm before the next storm. During a quiet moment of energy synchronization, Wan King asks who could possibly want to harm the princess. Baiju maintains a focused presence, explaining that the traitor is likely someone within Yun Ning's inner circle.